Oh, no, he just came out and said we're ready.
Good morning. Welcome to the Board of Water and Power Commissioners meeting. Today is Tuesday, September 8th. This proceeding is broadcast on Channel 35. The exact broadcast times can be found by contacting Channel 35. General Counsel?
Good morning. In accordance with Governor Newsom's March 20th order, part of this commission is appearing remotely. In the boardroom today are Commission President Cynthia McLean-Hill and Vice President Susanna Reyes. The other commissioners are appearing remotely. Also pursuant to the governor's orders, we will be taking public comment remotely. Members of the public wishing to offer public comment can call in at 213-306-3065. I repeat, that number is 213-306-3065. When prompted, please enter 146-419-9194. Again, that's 146-419-9194. Members of the public will be offered 1 minute per item, up for a cumulative total of 5 minutes on all items that they wish to speak on. Members of the public, when speaking, please turn down your computers if you're watching on computer so that we don't receive feedback. At this point, I turn it back to you, Madam Secretary.
Okay, I will call roll. Commissioners, please say present. Commissioner Berard? Commissioner Berard, can you please unmute? President McLean-Hill?
Present.
Commissioner Neiman Brady?
Present.
Vice President Reyes?
Present.
Commissioner Berard?
Present.
4 members present and a quorum. Opening of the board meeting by President McLean-Hill.
Thank you. I know we have a long meeting today, so I'm going to keep my opening remarks brief. First, just as a matter of clarification, our opening or our public comments, general public comments, is limited to the 1 and 5 minutes. We'll have comments on item 8B. And comments on those items are as previously agreed with the primary organizer of those comments. There'll be an opening comment, 3 to 5 minutes, 1 minute per commenter thereafter, and a closing summary comment of up to 3 minutes. Before we get started, I wanted to briefly mention the incredible work done by this department over the last several days. I know that the city has been enormously stressed as a result of the extreme heat event that we had over the Labor Day weekend, and that as I speak, there continue to be Angelenos who are without power. And that is something that this department sincerely regrets. That said, yesterday I had the opportunity to visit the Electric Trouble Board, and that's the location where our employees are taking in the reports of outages and literally dispatching crews to assess and address those outages. I have to tell you, it was absolutely remarkable. You have men and women in that location in a small room working under enormous pressure for very long hours. We had crews that were out, as I understand it, doing 16-hour shifts, 8 hours off, and then coming back for another 16 hours. Every single resource that this department has and every resource that we could beg, borrow, or steal was dedicated toward addressing this crisis. I know that we frequently acknowledge the tremendous efforts of the leadership of this department, but today I just want to give a shout out to a couple of the people that I met yesterday, starting with Brian Wilbur, who was kind enough to come in to make sure that I was able to access the facility and meet the leadership at that facility. David Owen, who spent the last 3 days juggling like a madman and watching his board light up as the department became overwhelmed with outages. I have to say that the calm and the determination that he showed was admirable and was quite, I was quite proud to witness that. Levon Mitchell, who is the principal electric trouble dispatcher and whose responsibility it is to make sure that we are staffed and that the men and women that operate in that facility. And again, among the things that was news to me is how few people that we actually have that are qualified and able to do that job. So few and so highly protected that was the one room that I could not enter masked up or otherwise, because without them we'd be in dire straits. And also Carlos Vizela, who gave me the senior electric trouble dispatcher. He led the group that was overseeing dispatch that day, and he shared with me both the challenges and the grit that was on display over the course of this past weekend. For those of us who suffered the heat, you can only imagine what it took to get out there for 16 hours, moving around the city, climbing poles, repairing transponders. It really was and is quite something. I am confident that we will have time at this board in the very near future to discuss in depth how the system held up, what we can do in the future as we continue to address these extreme climate issues, looking at both our staffing and our infrastructure. But I just wanted to say on this day that we should all be very proud of and celebrate the essential workers that are a part of this department. Those people that we rarely see, and those people that, what do they say, that shower at the end of the day, not at the beginning. So I wanted to thank them. And with that, we can move on to the report by the General Manager.
Are you going to hold general public comment for?
Oh, I'm sorry. General public comment first.
Sorry.
Okay, I will be calling for general public comment. Please state your name and the item that you wish to speak on.
How many people do we have for general public comment?
For right now, general public comment, we have approximately 3, and there's 2 other callers that I don't have identification on.
Okay, and so just to be clear, general public comment is not comment on 8B.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Jessica Serrano, please state your name and the item you wish to speak on.
Yes. I wish to speak on this general public comment.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. So my name is Jessica Serrano. I'm an attorney and I'm a resident of District Number 7. I'm calling regarding the Valley Generating Station in Sun Valley. As you probably know, since it's been discussed in other hearings, there's been a methane leak which has been going on for over a year now. If it wasn't for NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab emission study, we would have never found out that there was this methane leak. Unfortunately, the LADWP's there's been a gross mishandling of information and what is going out to the public about this leak. I think it goes without saying that the methane leak dangers are exacerbated during.
Excuse me, Speaker. We're taking comment on the Valley Generating Station at the time that item is presented. Under general public comment, we're taking comment on items that are not on the agenda, that are just general items. So if you wouldn't mind holding, your comment would be taken up when we take up item 8B, and will be taken up after the staff has presented its report, if that's okay. So the next comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Tiffany Wong, please state the item that you wish to speak on.
Susie, we're
Yeah.
not, general public comment is not on items. It is just general public comment. We're taking up comment on items as the items are presented.
Tiffany Wong, I show that you have for general public comment. Is that correct? Tiffany Wong?
Yes, this is Tiffany Wong, speaking on general public comment.
General public comment. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Tiffany Wong. I'm speaking on behalf of SCOPE and our South LA community, as well as a member of the Repower LA Coalition. Last week, City Council passed a motion recommending that DWP deliver a debt relief and forgiveness program for low-income ratepayers. And this motion also includes bill stabilization for low-income ratepayers to stop the debt from rising based on a percentage of their monthly income. This is an opportunity for DWP to address the intersecting health, economic, and climate crises that frontline communities like South LA are facing at this time, and a time opportunity to help relieve their heavy burden of debt and allow them to thrive. We urge the board to direct the DWP staff to work alongside the coalition partners of Repower LA and deliver a solution within 30 days. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Caller with the prefix, the area code 323491. This is for general public comment. Is that the item you were speaking on?
Good morning. My name is Agustin Cabrera. I'm the director of the Repower LA Coalition with the LA Alliance for the Economy. I'm calling on behalf of close to 50 community-based organizations, environmental justice organizations, and labor unions, including IUW Local 18 and the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor, who all support the Erase Utility Debt campaign. As we witnessed this weekend, utilities are a necessity during this combined pandemic, heat wave, and economic crisis. And so we're asking the board to direct DWP staff to work alongside our coalition partners to create a solution within 30 days to help relieve the heavy burden of debt and allow Angelinos to drive, particularly as we get closer to the moratorium on utility stuff being lifted. So we want to work closely with staff to achieve the necessary protections for ratepayers across the city. Our research shows that a utility debt forgiveness program will not only provide relief for the most vulnerable in the city, but also be good for the utility in the long term. Lastly, regarding item 8B, we stand in solidarity with our partners, Coquina Beautiful, who are asking for transparency and accountability regarding the recent methane gas leak, and we urge the department to meet with Northeast San Fernando Valley residents who are looking for answers. We look forward to hearing from you very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller with area code 757407. We are speaking on general public comment, item number 2.
Hello, this is Cameron. I'm speaking general public comment. I want to echo the comments that have been made over the past few weeks about the need to work on a plan to erase utility debt and put forth Council President Mary Martinez's vision to, recommend that DWP reports back with the debt relief and forgiveness program for low-income ratepayers. This is really, really severe right now, especially with the heat wave that we're going through. Again, 2 weeks ago or so, there's another one, and the worse that this gets and the worse this economic crisis gets, we need to ensure that the resources for this forgiveness plan don't come at the expense of the workforce of LADWP, because we definitely want to preserve their jobs and their good-paying, quality jobs. So we definitely need a plan to happen within this month and to move forward in a way that really improves the outreach for the existing equity-based programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller with the Area code of 323-330. You're calling for general public comment. Please start.
Yes, hello, good morning, LADWP Board of Commissioners. My name is Amanda Pantoja, and I'm an organizer with Food and Water Action, as well as a member of the Repower Coalition. And I'm calling to speak on the issue of debt forgiveness for ratepayers. This weekend, amidst the ongoing pandemic, we reached record high temperatures across the state, and all of ratepayers in our city are affected. As we see, utilities are essential for us to continue to simply live during the time of pandemic and the climate crisis. So we are demanding that LADWP and our city leaders completely erase the debt. LADWP is the largest public utility in the country, which means it is ours. It belongs to the ratepayers, so it should be a resource for people during this very precarious public health crisis. We are also demanding that LADWP improve outreach for existing equity-based programs and the utility debt forgiveness program to address historic under-enrollment and increased eligibility of many Angelenos due to COVID-19. This outreach must be culturally relevant and accessible in a variety of languages, and that continues to be paired with outreach done by community-based organizations, such as those involved with the Repower LA Coalition. We also are demanding to invest in utility justice to reduce the widespread unaffordability of LADWP bills for LA low-income communities of color as part of Mayor Garcetti's Executive Order 27, and make long-term investments in justice-oriented rate setting and equity programs. We're simply demanding that LADWP really take into account the community members and ratepayers during this time and erase the debt. The city has a responsibility to customers who are low income and have lost their income due to COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you. President McLean-Hill, that would close our public comments. All other callers are for the item number 8B.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Adams.
Thank you very much. I'll try to keep my comments brief this morning as well. First of all, I want to recognize and appreciate the comments that you made regarding our staff in the heat wave. Just a real quick recap. So we did have a record-breaking heat storm over the Labor Day weekend. As of 9 p.m. Monday, so last night, we had restored power to 139,000 customers who had experienced some type of outage. Some of those outages lasted only minutes. Some lasted as long as 48 hours. Obviously, with every crew we had, both our own crews, contract crews, attempting to get mutual aid crews from other utilities who also had socked with the same kind of problems. There's a lot of work to do, a lot of infrastructure renewal work to do, and a lot to do to look at staffing to make sure that we can manage these, because 48 hours is too long for anyone to be without power, especially in this kind of heat. But our crews have been responding remarkably and working around the clock to do restoration. I think we cut the number of people out of power in half on Sunday night and half again last night. This morning, as of about an hour ago, we had about 9,700 customers out of power. 48 hours ago, we had 70,000 out of power. So we are making good headway. One of the issues now we're dealing with is a number of called neighborhood outages, which could affect anywhere from 5 to 20 homes. And so it still takes a crew 4 to 6 hours to make those repairs. A lot of times it's a transformer or a pole repair. And so we are doing everything we can to get everyone dealt with, both the large outages and the small outages as well. So we hope that we're able to make significant progress today and get everyone back in power as quickly as we can. Last Thursday, we finished Thursday night. All the lanes were reopened on Sunset after the main break of 2 weeks ago on a Sunday night. We had a 30-inch water main break. There are 5 large water mains in that area. It was not the one that broke behind UCLA a few years ago, but it was a rather major break and a large, outage for the street in the neighborhood there. Everyone still remained in water though during the time, and so we'd like to thank our city partners as well, who, including Bureau Street Services, who went and got the final paving done, got the street reopened, and did a great job. Rick Harris's water crew had their hands full, dealing with a main that was put in back in the William Mulholland era, and largely has functioned very well. So that work was done and completed, and Sunset is back to normal. Regarding pandemic response, we are bringing employees back into the office who are telecommuting an additional day starting next week, and continuing to work on telecommuting plans, realizing that this will be for the long haul to make sure that we are fully engaged with our employees and they are getting the full scope of their work done. We are fully staffed in the field, and we have everyone engaged as to the greatest extent we possibly can in all the work and the projects that the department's undertaken and plan to get done this year. With that, our call wait times have improved dramatically. We had a number of employees trying to thin the number of call center reps who were in the office at any one time and also taking calls remotely. We've improved the ability to take calls from home and tie into our system down here. So our call times are down to about 5.5 minutes, which is a great improvement, especially given the fact that we're seeing higher call volumes come in right now because we have a lot of customers that are looking at payment plans and trying to understand their bill and seeing what their options are. We've changed our labeling on our bills from past due to payment reminder. And so we are trying to engage our customers, but we are seeing many more questions come in. The number of estimated bills is up about 2% because we can't get to every meter because sometimes we have to go inside a dwelling, and those always cause questions as well. The bills always square up, but customers wonder when they get an estimated bill what it really means for them. And then the last thing I just wanted to say, it was my honor last week to recognize Rick Sheresick, the Senior Assistant General Manager of the Water System. He completed 35 years of service. June 1985 is when he was hired as a design engineer. He worked on some of the biggest projects in the water system, including the Owens Lake Dust Mitigation Project, which is probably the biggest environmental project we've had in our history. He actually, a lot of people don't know, he was one of the true fathers of water conservation in our program here at the department. So he's had a great career here in his 35 years, and I want to thank Rick for his years of service and let you know that we were able to do that in front of his leadership team on a WebEx meeting with a large crowd. So it was nice to be part of that. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, and congratulations, Rich. Commission comments, or Commissioner comments, I'm sorry. Seeing none. Comments from the ratepayer.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Nicole.
I just wanted to also recognize the Herculean efforts of LADWP employees over the weekend and the past several days. I know everyone has mentioned this before, but it's not just what we've been going through, but what the entire state has been going through between the wildfires, water main breaks, other generating stations throughout the state going down. And it is, in my opinion, quite remarkable that I think at its peak, it was something like 32,000 customers were without power. Given the size of our service area, I think that is actually quite an incredibly low figure, and I'm very proud of all the work. And while, Marty, you're absolutely right that 24 hours is far too long for anybody to be without power, especially during this heat, I really applaud the teams at LADWP for what they were able to accomplish. And then as well, I just wanted to thank Rich for his years of service. I saw somewhere it posted online, and I'm glad you had an opportunity to recognize him in this forum as well.
Thank you. Comments from the ratepayer advocate. I don't see or hear anything. Discussions with neighborhood council.
Camden's waving her hand.
She's on mute.
Camden, please unmute yourself.
I'm actually on the phone.
We saw you waving your hand.
Hello?
Yeah, Camden, did you have a comment to make?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I finally unmuted myself.
That's okay. Joe was feeling you somehow, so he managed to keep us on this item long enough for you to come in, Fred.
I did have brief comments about item 12, which is the rate adjustments on water supply costs. And this item should go ahead, but as we consider rate changes in the future, we should have in our toolbox a way to moderate increases in these rates over multiple periods if possible.
Thank you. Discussion with Neighborhood Council.
No community impact statements or formal positions were filed by any neighborhood councils on the items on today's agenda.
Terrific. It looks like we have a request to hear both items 11 and items 14. Are there any other items that commissioners would like pulled from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion for... I'm sorry.
I would like a presentation on item 20, please.
Item 20? Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. So that's items 11, 14, and 20 that have been pulled for presentation. I'd like to entertain a motion for approval of items 12, 13, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, 22, and 23. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Move.
Was that a second, Jill?
No, I made the motion to approve.
Second, Nicole second.
Oh, Nicole second. Terrific. So would you call the roll, Susie?
Yes. Jill Berard,
Yes.
Neiman Brady,
Yes.
Susanna Reyes,
Yes.
Cynthia McLean Hill,
Yes.
for ayes.
Terrific. And we'll now move to management reports. First up, item 8A. And for item 8A, we are joined by, and this is difficult to say, former Commissioner Mel Levine, a matter that I did not address in my opening remarks because I'm still absorbing that reality and have yet to really come to terms with it. That said, we welcome your presence here today. For the purposes of this item, I'd like to turn the agenda to you to facilitate its presentation. So it will be former Commissioner Levine, followed by Rich Hersick and others from the Water Division. Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson, Madam President. So this is the first meeting I'm auditing, and I'm auditing at the request of our general manager to put this OLSAP issue in some context. I also want to compliment and thank Rich for his 35 years of service, 20% of which I have shared with him. My 7 years sound like nothing, though, Rich, when I think of your 35, and I am a firsthand witness to a great deal, or at least a substantial amount of your extraordinary leadership. So I want to join in complimenting and thanking you. Rich and Marty asked me if I would at least put the OLSAP matter in context, and I'm happy to try to do that. I don't want to spend too much time on it. This is something that could go on for a long time. But I think the context of these negotiations and how they led to OLSAP are very important. And in light of the fact that the only board member who was on the board at that time and who is still there is Jill, but Jill was not a part of our two-person negotiating team. And the rest of you were not anywhere near being on the board at that time. I thought Marty and Rich's request made sense. Jill one thing you will not regret is that you were not on that negotiating team. Just to put the beginning of this in context, I was asked by Mayor Garcetti to join the commission right after his election in 2013. Even before I was sworn in, the then general manager, Ron Nichols, called me and said, I want to bring to your attention a really challenging issue that we have. We've had a long and difficult history dealing with the Great Basin Air Pollution Control District with regard to dust mitigation on Owens Lake. And the situation is so dire at this point that our staff and their staff can hardly even talk to each other. And it is vital for DWP to find a way to make a deal with Great Basin if that's at all possible. Hold on 1 second. Can we shut the door because?
I do recognize his dog's voice.
You say that chorus is coming from his home.
My dog wanted to participate in the conversation, and I concluded that she probably wouldn't add much. In any event, Ron said we really need to try to have some board-to-board negotiations. And given the what's the rule that we can only have less than a majority? The
Brown Act.
Make them stretch it out.
The Brown Act.
The Brown Act. Given the Brown Act, we can only have 2 commissioners negotiating on our side, and Great Basin, who has 7 members on their board, can only have 3. And so Ron said, would I be willing to essentially chair our 2-person group? And I suggested that we rope Bill Funderburk into that as well. And so Bill and I were anointed as the 2-person negotiating team for DWP. Around this very same time, we were involved in litigation with Great Basin, and Julie in particular, and also Joe, can give you more detail than you'll want on that, and I will not get into extensive detail with regard to negotiations on this legal matter and broader ones, other than to say a settlement conference had been arranged to see whether a settlement could be achieved on a legal matter where we had already lost in terms of liability, and the only issue at that time that was on the table was for damages. So Julie and Ron and I met with Great Basin's lawyer and Great Basin's air pollution control officer, Ted Shady, in a settlement conference presided over by a retired judge. And the settlement conference went nowhere, and the judge pulled me aside and said, look, this lawyer the lawyer for Great Basin is unwilling to compromise at all. If you guys want to take a last shot at making some progress, you should see if you can get the air pollution control officer alone and have a one-on-one discussion with him and see whether you can make some progress. And to make what was then another hour-and-a-half story very short, Ted Shady and I alone met, and I proposed these board-to-board negotiations. Ted was skeptical, but he said, if you essentially assure us that this will be done in good faith and in a reasonable time period, I'm willing to go ahead. By the way, this was against his lawyer's passionate opposition, and that helped to explain some of the context of the issues that we were dealing with, given that the agreement that had been reached under a prior general manager, and given the law, basically, that for any violations, we had essentially no defense with regard to dust mitigation, and we would be charged $10,000 a day for any violations of dust control. So Ted Shady and I agreed that we would engage in these board-to-board negotiations, which ended up lasting, I don't know, a year and a half or 2 years of very detailed and arduous discussions back and forth between Inyo and Los Angeles. In the course of all of this, I mean, in these discussions, they were very close to breaking down on multiple times, and they would have broken down, I want to say, were it not for Bill Funderburk. And Bill put his heart and soul into these negotiations, and Bill actually developed a close personal relationship with Ted Shady, who was the principal interlocutor on the other side, and with whom we had made no progress whatsoever until Bill Funderburk achieved a personal relationship with Ted. The core issue that DWP needed resolved was certainty. Great Basin continued to expand the amount of territory that our dust control mitigations had to deal with. And the acreage, the mileage kept expanding. When the initial so-called deal was made between us and Great Basin, the then general manager estimated that we could do the dust management that was needed for between $100 million and $120 million. And by the time these negotiations began, we had already spent over $1 billion, I think $1.2 billion, with no end in sight. So our principal objective was getting certainty, getting a limit on how much more dust control was required, and some understanding and agreement as to which dust control mechanisms would be acceptable. But we wanted a way to continue to explore alternative dust control mitigation measures. And to that end, again, this was an idea that Funderburk came up with. I think he found a precedent someplace, but Bill said, why don't we create a scientific advisory committee and see whether we can get the Great Basin negotiators to agree that this will not be mandatory, but it will be a committee of experts, prominent experts from the various national academies, the National Academy of Science, the National Academy of Engineering, the National Academy of Medicine, who will do scientific and technical analysis and recommendations with regard to other dust control measures that we would like considered. Even though a handful of dust control mitigation measures have been agreed upon, our water people, led by Marty and Rich, and the people on the ground at Owens Lake, felt that there were potentially other dust control mitigation measures that would be more effective. And if we had an advisory committee of very prominent, neutral scientists with no axe to grind from neither side, then that would give us the opportunity, as this process unfolded, to potentially introduce more efficient dust control measures than were already on the ground. And that was how the OLSAP, Owens Lake Scientific Advisory Committee, I think, OLSAP, was initiated and created. It became a part of the overall settlement, which did put a cap on the acreage, which was our principal objective, but which gives us the ongoing ability to bring to the attention of these nationally recognized experts potential other dust mitigation sources. And that's where we are now. I think that the presentations you'll get will go into somewhat additional detail with regard to the history, but Marty and Rich wanted me to provide a little bit of context for how the OLSAP was created and why it's so important to us to maintain it. So that's my context, which I hope is helpful.
Thank you very much, and very much appreciated, Rich.
Thank you. That was perfect, and Mel said everything that I had written down here, so perfect intro. I will just introduce the two speakers that we'll have for you. I will ask them to keep their presentations tight, so we're going to give Nelson 5 minutes, and then Dr. Allen about 15. But Nelson is going to start off just to give a brief additional overview of Owens Lake and what we're doing up there with our dust mitigation program. And then Dr. David Allen is with the National Academies of Sciences, and he is going to give a presentation of the results of their analysis, along with recommendations. At the end of that, I will just give some brief concluding remarks. So I'm going to turn over to Nelson Mejia, who gives leadership over all things Owens Lake.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. So again, Nelson Mejia. I oversee all the dust mitigation efforts at Owens Lake. So Owens Lake, where is Owens Lake? It's approximately 210 miles northeast of Los Angeles. It's a terminus lake, for all the runoff from the Eastern Sierra, and it's a salt lake, very salty, by the way. So when we talk about dust mitigation, we're actually talking about PM10. PM stands for particulate matter. 10 is the size of those particles, 10 microns or less in size. When compared to a human hair, a human hair can be as thick as 70 microns. So that kind of puts in perspective as to how minute these particles are. A little bit of history, you heard some of it already. And it was in 1987, actually, that the EPA established the National Ambient Air Quality Standard for PM10. And that was set at 150 milligrams per cubic meter. It was around that time also that the EPA classified Owens Lake as a serious non-attainment area. In 1998, the Great Basin District adopted their first SIP, State Implementation Plan. In 2000 is when DWP started installing dust controls at the lake. And as you heard earlier today from ex-Commissioner Levine, that when we are out of compliance, we're looking at potentially $10,000 per day in fines. So, for so many years, we kept getting orders from the Great Basin District to the point that we didn't see an end in sight. And that's why we contested some of those orders. And that process led to, the settlement agreement of 2013, which actually set a limit on the number of square miles that we will be controlling. And that limit was set 53.4 square miles. For your information, to date, we've controlled 48.6 square miles. So if you do the math, the Great Basin District still has the authority to order us an additional 4.8 square miles. Keep in mind that when we receive an order to do dust control at Owens Lake, we're only allowed to use 3 things. One is water, vegetation, which also uses water, and gravel. So water, we use either shallow flood or sprinklers. And through this process of working together with the Great Basin District and some other regulatory agencies, joining our efforts in trying to conserve water, especially during the years of the drought, we were able to come up with 2 additional dust controls methods. In reality, they're considered as a modified shallow flood, and those are tillage and brine. They're modified shallow flood because at some point they become less efficient, and when it reaches a point where we're no longer in compliance, we have the ability to reflood those areas and control dust emissions. And that's why, even though they don't look like shallow flood, they are considered a modified shallow flood. On the next slide, I would like to focus your attention to the box at the right upper corner of the slide. as you can see, before we did any dust controls at Owens Lake, there were measurements of 52,500 tons of PM10 emissions per year. Fast forward 20 years, we're looking at 355 tons of PM10. That's a 99.3% reductions. It's a big accomplishment, and obviously the credit should not go to just DWP. It's been a joint effort with the Great Basin District and some of the regulatory agencies in the area. So, future for the lake. For the past few years, we've embarked on this process, of consulting with all the stakeholders in the area, including all the regulatory agencies, a number of environmental organizations such as Audubon. We work closely with the Native American tribes. So we've gotten to the point that we reach consensus, and any decisions that we make at Owens Lake, whether it is related to new areas of dust control or modifying existing infrastructure, we've agreed that 4 principles, actually 4 objectives, need to be in line with those decisions. And in no particular order here, the objectives are dust control, water conservation, protection of habitat, protection of cultural resources. And again, keeping the future in mind and recognizing that the corrosive conditions at Owens Lake are pretty difficult for our infrastructure, to the point that infrastructure that's been in the ground for 20 years is equivalent to 50, 60 years here in downtown LA. So obviously we don't want to wait until our infrastructure fails. That's why we are in the process of implementing an asset management program at Owens Lake, where we are gathering information as to the condition of all of our assets, and the idea is to have that information available to make the right decisions as to whether repair, rebuild, or replace an asset. And that leads to the OLSAP. As you heard, one of the stipulations of the settlement agreement was for DWP and the Great Basin District to work together and to establish the OLSAP, the Owens Lake Scientific Advisory Panel. And the panel is made out of U.S. scientists, that are part of the National Academy of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. And the purpose for the OLSAP is to provide both agencies with scientific, technical recommendations to consider for the future of dust mitigation at Owens Lake. And with that in mind, if Dr. Allen is ready, I will turn it over to him.
It's my pleasure today to be able to summarize briefly for you the work of the Owens Lake Science Advisory Panel. My name is Dave Allen. I'm a professor in chemical engineering specializing in air quality at the University of Texas at Austin, and I was asked by the National Academies to chair the Owens Lake Scientific Advisory Panel. On the next slide, you'll see that the academies gave us a statement of task, and that was to evaluate the effectiveness of alternative dust control measures, or DCMs, for their ability to reduce dust, in particular particulate matter less than 10 microns in diameter at the Owens Lake bed, but in reducing dust, also to reduce the amount of water used in controlling dust emissions, along with considering energy, environmental, and economic activities, incling the durability and reliability of the dust control measures. Next slide, please. The committee consisted of scientists and engineers with a wide range of experience. As I said, my experience is in air quality. There were a number of other air quality experts, as well as experts on dust measures, measures on hydrology, experts on ecosystems in the region, and I won't go through the members' names in detail. They're documented in this slide. If we move to the next slide, what you'll see is that we evaluated 15 different dust control measures. Those included the current dust control measures on the lake, often referred to as BACMs, or best available control measures. And those included the shallow flooding, along with using brine as a substitute for fresh water in flooding, along with the tillage, which you saw a picture of, along with vegetation and gravel. And then dynamic water management includes applying water in a way that minimizes the amount of water being required for the flooding of the dust control area. These are all approved best available control measures, but we also evaluated a number of other measures that have been tested at the lake, including use of cobbles rather than gravel, so think larger size rocks, the use of sand fences that stop sand in the same way that a snow fence stops snow, looking at very precise surface wetting using sprinklers, using a variety of roughness elements on the surface of the lake. So think about obstacles for wind flow that reduce the wind velocity right at the lake so that the dust doesn't begin to blow, as well as other types of materials that you might put on the lake bed to reduce the amount of wind speed right at the ground. Looking at other types of vegetation, including shrubs, and then deploying solar panels, which not only generate electricity, but also have the potential to protect the surface of the lake from high wind speeds, which entrain the dust. So we evaluated all those other dust control measures as well. If we go to the next slide, what we see is the dust control measures that we have, and moving on to the next slide. Let me summarize for you the conclusions and recommendations. Next slide, please. So the first conclusion to reach is that the dust control measures implemented by LADWP on Owens Lake have been extraordinarily effective. You just heard that emissions were estimated to be reduced by 99.3%. In addition, the measurements of particulate matter in the atmosphere taken at the edge of the lake have been similarly dramatically reduced, going from what were the highest levels recorded anywhere in the United States to now levels that are close to, but not quite attaining the national ambient air quality standards for particulate matter. So the amount of progress that has been made in the roughly 20 years that these dust control measures have evolved through has been truly remarkable. Next slide, please. But there are a number of challenges that still remain. First, the national ambient air quality standards still not attained at the monitors on the lake. As we all know, there's also concern about future availability of water for dust mitigation, and whether or not that will continue to be more problematic. Next slide, please. Finally, there are ecosystems that have developed at the lake that have, and I'm not seeing the slides anymore, at least on my screen. So I'm going to continue going through the slides, anticipating that the board members might have them in their agenda. If not, I'll just try and make my remarks as clear as possible.
And we do have
a number of other
slides.
criteria. Okay, thank you. There are a number of other criteria that are important, including the preservation of ecosystems and also tribal concerns. And so if we move on to the next slide, which is number 18 in my slide deck, we look at all these conflicting concerns and criteria for dust control measures, that they control dust, often with water, yet that they achieve minimum amounts of water use, and yet that they also preserve ecosystems, which often require water, and that also they consider the concerns of the native communities in the region. Those are conflicting criteria, and no dust control measure can achieve all of those simultaneously. However, the ones we did review, we found a number to be particularly promising, including the precision surface wetting, the use of shrubs, the use of natural porous elements, and the use of cobbles. And we encourage the continued evaluation of those dust control measures. Let me go specifically to the recommendations that the panel had, and those are numbered, so I'll refer to them by their number. Recommendation 1 is that the district and the DWP continue to evaluate both individual and hybrid dust control measures, and I'll describe in a moment what I mean by hybrid, so that new approaches can be achieved that will use less water and maximize other types of environmental benefits, but while continuing to control dust. And so some of those new approaches include looking strategically at the lake for evaluating managing the salinity of the water that's used in shallow flooding so that the water can be minimized, and then also looking at hybrid dust control measures. So for example, when precision wetting is used, putting sprinklers out on the lake and putting water just where it's needed rather than flooding uniformly, what tends to happen is that plant communities will begin to establish themselves in those areas that are receiving water through sprinklers. And though that vegetation that grows up further reduces dust. And so it becomes a mixture of methods, not just wetting or flooding, but also vegetation. And what's needed is ways of evaluating how these combinations of methods, like water together with vegetation, will influence dust control as a complement to just flooding or just vegetation. Next slide. A second recommendation, and I'll come back and explain this in a little bit more detail in just a moment, is that we recommend that the district and the DWP look at measuring particulate matter emissions directly at the dust control areas. We think that that will offer greater flexibility. There's been a lot of progress made in measurement technologies just in the last few years, and we think relatively inexpensive measures of particulate matter emissions directly from the dust control measures could be very effective. And so let me move on to the next slide and explain that in a little bit more detail. So what you see on this slide is two maps. The map on the left shows the broad outlines of the lake together with, shown as black squares in this figure on the left, shows where the particulate matter is measured in order to determine whether or not the National Ambient Air Quality Standard is met. What's shown on the right is the mapping of the individual dust control measures. So each one of the outlined areas represents a different sub-region that has a dust control measure assigned to it. And what's done to try and plan is to estimate what the emissions from each of those rectangles on the right would be, and they're color-coded to show what sort of control measure they currently have on them, and then to use computer models to predict what the measurements will be at the monitors that are used to determine whether or not the National Ambient Air Quality Standard is met. And so the way that the emissions are measured from these rectangles, from these dust control areas, is to use surrogates. So for example, if you flood, what's measured is the area of flooding. And the area of flooding needs to be at least 75% of the area of the dust control area in order to be effective, or the amount of vegetation that you have, or other surrogates for what we're really interested in, which is what are the dust emissions, what are the PM emissions. So if we go on to the next slide, keeping that in mind, what we're encouraging is rather than measure these surrogates, things like vegetative cover or the amount of area that's covered with surface flooding, that instead relatively inexpensive monitors for particulate matter be employed. That has a number of advantages that I'll get to in just a moment, but one of the advantages is it makes the whole process much more transparent. Rather than needing to use in detail computer models to simulate what the dust emissions will be, and then from the dust emissions estimate whether or not attainment will be reached, you eliminate a number of those assumptions and make the process a lot more transparent. We can go on to the next slide. Another reason for measuring particulate matter rather than these surrogates is imagine that you have vegetative cover in one of those dust control areas, and your vegetative cover goes below the threshold that you're required to meet. In a situation like that, the conclusion is, well, the area will no longer be effective in reducing dust, and therefore we need to flood the area. And so you lose all that vegetation that's been built up, and you use a lot more water. What would be a lot more effective is if you could transition to a hybrid control measure, where you would put out hay bales as a roughness element, or other engineered devices to temporarily achieve additional dust control without needing to then revert back to surface flooding, and use that for as long as is necessary for the vegetation to recover. Those sorts of hybrids and adaptive adjustments in dust control, the panel thought could be quite effective. But the way you'll be able to do that is if you actually measure the dust coming off those dust control measures or areas rather than the surrogates of area flooded or vegetative cover or other surrogates. So that was a major recommendation which appeared as recommendations 1 and 2 in our report. And we further expanded on that in the next slide, where in recommendation 3, we suggested that the district and the Department of Water and Power should evaluate dust control measures based on PM10 emissions from the dust control areas. And to do that, transitioning slowly between the current methods of measuring dust control effectiveness to these new particulate matter-based emissions. Let me briefly touch on a couple of more recommendations that the panel made. The first was to continue to improve the air quality models. I'd be happy to answer additional questions about this. I've been doing air quality models for decades, and our air quality models are always continuing to improve. And the spirit of this recommendation is to stay current with the best available science in understanding what the impact of these individual dust control measures areas are on the monitors that determine whether or not the lake is in attainment of the standard. The next slide also suggests that we recommended that as the district and the DWP go forward, that rather than taking what's happened and what's evolved over decades as ever-increasing amounts of area come under control as the infrastructure for those controls begin to age, and as some of that is beginning to be replaced. Our recommendation is that a systematic approach be used in looking at the lake. So rather than just looking at each incremental dust control area as it gets added, to look at the lake as a whole now, and as areas get converted from one dust control measure to another, that a systems approach be used, looking at the best dust control measures to be used on various parts of the lake. Let me go to the next slide, which is the recommendation associated with that systems approach, recommending that the dust control, the use of water, the protection of cultural resources, and the ecosystem protection all be considered. Finally, the committee members greatly enjoyed participating in this scientific advisory panel. We hope that the recommendations are helpful to this process. As indicated in the stipulated judgment that created the panel, this was the first of what's expected to be a series of reports by the Owens Lake Science Advisory Panel, and the panel could provide additional advice on implementing the recommendations in the report, and those are briefly mentioned in the overall panel summary. With that, I'll close, and if there's any time for questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions that board members may have. Thank you very much for the opportunity to give this briefing.
Thank you, sir. Rich?
Well, if there aren't any questions, just so what? So what through all this? Well, Owens Lake represents really a big commitment of resources, not only water and money, but it's also an impact on the environment that's large, including cultural resources. And it is, this OLSAP is something that the board bargained for. Commissioner Levine mentioned certainty. Certitude was something that eluded us for decades out there of what our total commitment was, what was our total responsibility. And that's really the great legacy that Mel leaves behind, along with Commissioner Funderburk, is that we got certainty. So our obligation is set, I guess, in sand on Owens Lake, but it's firm, it's controlled. But there is still a lot of uncertainty out there as to how effective some of the dust control measures are, and basically, can we do things better, cheaper, faster, et cetera. And so the second main thing that you all bargained for was the OLSAP. And the most common word used in this report is uncertainty. So there still is a great amount of uncertainty that still impacts our resources out there. So it's incumbent upon us to not only both the Great Basin as well as Water and Power to work and to and act on these recommendations. I think that's what you didn't ask for, just a report to be done, but to act on those recommendations. So we'll be coming back to the board with that, and hopefully in concert with Great Basin. But secondly, as the presenter said, there's still a lot more uncertainty. So the expectation is that both our agencies will continue to do more research to develop more recommendations to make our activities on the lake more effective and efficient. So thank you for your time.
No, thank you, Rich. I was going to open up for commission comments and questions. Nicole, was that you jumping?
Yeah. I thought we were closing, so I just wanted to ask a really quick question. Given the fact that there is a massive fire on the other side of the Sierras going on, it dawned on me to just inquire what obligations, and dear God, I hope this does not happen, because that large creek fire that's about 150,000 acres, if it got all the way to Owens Valley, it would be 3 or 4 times the size. But what obligations, if any, does LADWP have should there be a fire or something, given the nature of wildfires in California? I was just curious if what we would need to do or to recreate.
In the Owens Valley planning area, if there was a fire?
Yes. If there was a fire there.
Well, there have been fires, brush fires, down on the lands that we have, and obviously, the worst thing that's happened to them is that it's removed the vegetation and then made that area vulnerable to dust emissions itself. Owens Lake would be the most critical one. If we the vegetation we had out there were to burn, that would be significant for us. But otherwise, if it's up higher in the forest, we don't have obligations on that, and Great Basin's able to tease out the PM10 emissions from fires, so there's not responsibility on us from fires that happen outside of our lands.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Any other commissioner have a comment or a question? Commissioner Reyes.
I just want to express my appreciation for the report and also for Commissioner Levine and Bill Funderburg for their steadfast leadership in creating the LSAP, because I think that is a huge source of valuable information and advice for us that is scientific and reliable. So I think my only concern is that we need to be more, we have to abide by the transparency when it comes to the monitoring of air quality in that area, so that then we earn the trust of our stakeholders in that specific region, and at the same time also look at the resiliency and adaptation measures that we're taking, so that then we're looking to a more sustainable future. And I know that uncertainty is really something that we want to be certain, but we're not, given that climate change is here, climate change is real. We don't know, forecasting the computer models, something could be happening like tomorrow, like in Colorado, they're having snow after 90-degree weather, right? So it's just the planning part that, I think we are really great at, and I express my appreciation for all the thought process and meaningful conversations and recommendations that you presented today. Thank you.
Go ahead, sorry.
Well, Marty, did you have something that you'd like to add?
I just wanted to add one comment. Commissioner, you mentioned about transparency on air monitoring, which we think is very important. One of the things that in Dr. Allen's comments is the way the dust ID model currently goes is that there's a lot of modeled violations as opposed to real violations. And the way the model currently works, looking at Commissioner Neiman Brady's comments, is that if there's an air quality violation on the lake, the model will find somewhere on the lake to find guilty of that, regardless of whether the dust initiated on the lake or not. So this is a real issue scientifically that we have to get in front of and find out some real answers. And I think the idea that modeling should evolve over time as information becomes becomes better and science becomes better is very important. I think it's very important for everyone to realize that right now, 15% of every water bill, 1 out of every $7 that our ratepayers send to us goes to pay for Owens Lake. At one point in time, we put more water on Owens Lake than the city of San Francisco uses in a year. So with Nelson's work and others before him, they've decreased that by about 1/3. But this is not an insignificant investment at all. And so any improvements we can make in how we do this are very important to us and for the folks that we serve.
Thank you for that. I'd like to just say a couple of things before we move on. First, I want to compliment the presenters. It was a really, really well done report and very well presented. Also, it is humbling still, as the oldest new member of this commission, to be reminded yet again of the brilliance and service of Commissioner Levine and Commissioner Funderburg, and with respect to this particular effort, the real genius in negotiating as part of the settlement, a scientific advisory panel, which provides us with the ability to, in real time, work with West Basin and really to potentially turn adversaries into partners in achieving specific goals and objectives. So I look forward to the item coming back with specific requests around how we move forward to implement the recommendations, and am prepared to do whatever is necessary as the leader of this board to impress upon Great Basin both our deep gratitude for their partnership in this effort, and also our commitment to seeing it move forward. So with that, I thank you all and look forward to your report back.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are now moving to item 8B, and if we could have the presenters come forward on that item, that would be terrific. That's the update on the Valley Generating Station and methane leak. Susie, can you tell me how many people that we have wishing to speak on this item?
I have 6 speakers, 3 that are calling methane. The other users, I don't have identification as to what they're speaking
terrific. So we will take up the report, and then we will take up speakers. And I would ask commissioners if we would have both the benefit of the report and also hear public comment, and then seek questions and comments from the presenters or from the department. Marty, did you have anything that you wanted to say in advance of this presentation?
Just
okay.
At the beginning.
Then Marty.
Okay, thank you very much. For the board members and the public listening, as you recall, at the last board meeting on August 25th, we reported to you about an ongoing methane leak that was slated for repairs this fall at the Valley Generating Station. First of all, I'd like to apologize to the board and for the public for bringing this issue in the manner that we did. We had no real forewarning for anyone. There was very little context, and unfortunately at the time, we were working with very little information that I hope today's report will fill in the blanks for a lot of that. Rightfully, our report to the board generated immediate and completely understandable concern, and we received a number of questions. We were contacted by many community members as well as policymakers. Today, we'd like to provide a complete update on the situation, the next steps that have been taken to remedy it, and our commitment moving forward to keep the community better informed in the future. Before we begin the report, I want to start by stressing to you and the concerned residents and stakeholders that we do take the matters of safety extremely seriously. We are well aware that we operate many of our key facilities within a densely urban area with neighborhoods surrounding us, and not only this plant, but other power plants and other critical facilities as well. And in many cases, the ones that are closest to the machinery and equipment at facilities like Valley are our own employees who work in and around the power plant all the time. And in fact, at Valley Generating Station, our own corporate safety offices are located right on that property, very close to the generating plant itself. At no time were our employees who were located at Valley Generating Station in danger from the leak. And what we do to ensure safety for our employees is that we have alarms that go off if methane or other toxic chemicals were to rise to levels that we felt that they could affect their safety or others around them. And because of that, and not really believing that our employees were in harm's way, by implication, the staff that was involved in the process early on looking at the repairs did not believe that there was a safety issue in the surrounding community as well. And that was the beginning of our failure to notify anyone or communicate about the leak. And so there was not an issue of trying to cover up or bury information. It was an oversight about the importance and how much people would want to know what was going on at the Valley site, whether we thought there was a risk or not. Still, we understand very much that as part of the Sun Valley and Sunland and Northeast Valley communities, we have an obligation to keep our neighbors informed of the developments at the plant. And we absolutely should have done so. Mr. Andy Kendall, Senior Assistant General Manager of the Power System, and I both believe wholeheartedly in this, and we've directed staff to provide us with notifications in the future immediately so we can engage each of you listening here today, as well as our local elected officials, members of the City Council, and the community of any issues that we come across in the future. Whether we believe they're a real concern or not, it's your right to know and believe that we have an obligation to do that. But again, I want to stress today that no time do we believe we actually had a risk to employees or public health, and we're very fortunate to be able to say that. And you know, if we did believe that we actually had something that was a serious health risk at all, we absolutely are obligated and feel very strongly that we mention that immediately to the public. So this was absolutely an oversight and communication on our part, but not because we did not want to be honest and truthful. Last point I want to make is that the Valley Generating Station is an integral part of our power supply transformation. As we rebuild our system and we reach our goals of greening the entire grid, we're relying on Valley and our other local generating plants even more sometimes to keep the electric system running. And so in that sense, the people who live around Valley Generating Station, who breathe the air in that area of the city, which is also subject to a lot of industrial facilities and other sources of pollutants, they are very much supporting the overall efforts to create a more sustainable and green power future. And so as we often have to rely on Valley more during the course of our upgrades, we realize that the local folks are making somewhat of a sacrifice in supporting the overall efforts of the city to reach a greener future. And this is all the more reason that we owe everyone the courtesy of more information and more transparency and regular updates, particularly if there's an issue that we believe could cause concern or alarm, to fully explain that issue to everyone who's living around these facilities. And so we're committed to doing a much better job in the future, and we're laying out systems in place to make sure we can have regular updates to the community so they can know what's going on the site, and that there are no events like this in the future. We make sure that we are transparent and communicating, and even if there's nothing to communicate other than business as usual, we will commit to doing that so that people feel that we are being upfront about the issues that are potentially impacting them or of concern in their neighborhoods. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Andy Kindle and Nancy Sutley to actually go through the report and let everyone know the wealth of information that we've developed in the last 2 weeks, more in depth about monitoring and air results, and what we're planning to do to make sure that facility operates as cleanly and safely as possible in the future until we can really rely less on it and more on green energy.
Thank you. And Andy, Nancy, who's starting this presentation?
Andy's going to start.
I'll be starting the presentation. Again, Andy Kindle, Senior Assistant General Manager for the Power System. Reggie, you can go to the next slide. So just a general overview of Valley Generating Station in Sun Valley. It's a 576 megawatt natural gas fueled power plant with one 533 megawatt combined cycle unit and a 43 megawatt simple cycle. This plant provides electricity for up to 460,000 residents. So also located in the same site, as Marty briefly mentioned, this site is about 125 acres in size approximately. And again, we have our Chief Safety Officer, our Corporate Health and Safety staff works out of this site, our Joint Training and Safety Institute. 3 of our power systems training programs operate out of this site. So we have a little bit over 300 employees on a daily basis reporting to this location. This is a natural gas supply provided through Southern California Gas Company's distribution system. And these units operate with advanced pollution control equipment to reduce the nitrogen oxide. So we use 2 compressors that are reciprocating, a primary one and one on standby, that we use to increase the gas pressure from the gas company to the proper pressure to be burned in our units. Next slide, Reggie. So these 2 units have been most recently overhauled in 2014 and 2017. And I think, as we all know, JPL had started a study where they were looking for gas emitters and happened to detect one of our Valley facility and a plume in 2017. We were not notified by JPL in 2017 that they had seen this. The first notification we got from JPL was in 2020. So in 2019, our staff observed, and we participated with a study with EPRI to find that we had increased emissions here, and we did a root cause analysis and determined that they were coming from the compressors, and that based on our work with the experts on the compressors, determined that because of the use, they were wearing down prematurely. So in 2019 and through 2020, we worked with a compressor vendor to look for a better solution to this and find a different way to rebuild the units for them to work. Reggie, next slide. So during this time, as we were looking through this to find the right solution for a more permanent repair so that we would be able to fix these compressors so they wouldn't leak, after we made these repairs, we also had other things going on. So we were doing transmission line upgrades in our system that are needed to be able to help us bring in more renewable resources from out of basin. So in order to do that, we needed to run the Valley units in order to upgrade our transmission system to be able to bring those renewables into the city so that as we get closer to 2045 and 100% renewables, then our system would be prepared. So we did order a new unit, the new repair parts to replace these and make a permanent repair, and they are on order and scheduled to be delivered in October. And at that point, we'll be making these permanent repairs in November of 2020. Again, in August of 2020, for 21st of 2020, we were then notified that that the JPL study had shown an increase in the gas plume over the site, and so we looked at that with our team at Valley and saw that we needed to do something to make a repair in the interim before we could, get to November of 2020 to make the permanent repair. So we reached out to the Southern California Gas Company, who was able to increase the gas pressure that they feed us up to a level that we could feed that directly into the units and thus be able to take one of our compressors offline and have one on standby in order to make repairs. So as of September 5th now, we have been able to take alternately each compressor off and make repairs, and currently we are running with a feed from the SoCal Gas Company with one compressor on standby, one compressor offline, and ultimately that is reduced our the leakage by about 95%, down to about anywhere from 3 to 6 kilograms an hour from the previous numbers of up around 150 kilograms an hour. Next slide. So one of the things we did is we looked at our employees and determining safety and what we do in the plants, because the plants are fed by natural gas and methane. So we have safety protocols. We have gas monitors within the plant, and our employees wear gas monitors on their bodies that go off for the lower explosive level limits. And during this time, we've never had one of our employees' gas monitors alarm. And the gas monitor alarm, personal one, alarms at 10% of what would be considered the lower explosive gas level. And so with that, we also did fence line monitoring around our property to determine that methane was not leaving the property. And then, along with our studies and the 2019 EPRI study, that confirmed our root cause analysis of where the gas was leaking, and their recommendations and concluded the same that we did. So in addition, we had the 2017 and additional flyovers in 2020 from JPL. So they showed that in the 2020 studies that the plume had increased. So, but again, in our studies and in our research and what we did with our testing on site, we found that none of our employees were at any health or safety risk. And again, that's the reason we didn't notify outside the plant. In other words, we used our employees basically as a proxy for the community. So next slide, Reg.
So I'll pick it up here. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we know about health impacts around methane. It is not listed either as a California toxic air contaminant or by US EPA as a hazardous air pollutant under the Clean Air Act. We do have information that comes from these safety data sheets, which are prepared under OSHA guidelines about exposure to different chemicals. And as according to those data sheets, there are not chronic effects associated with natural gas's overall composition, but as Andy mentioned, methane is volatile and flammable at large concentrations, and there's concerns about suffocation hazard in confined spaces. And those hazards that are reported in the safety data sheets don't really apply in the case of Valley Generating Station because the compressor area is not in a confined space and therefore not a suffocation hazard to our employees or anybody in that area. And as Andy mentioned, the employees wear these methane detection monitors, and they do alarm at 10% of the explosive limit, and they did not alarm. And therefore, as Andy stated, we didn't believe that the emission levels threatened the health and safety of the plant personnel or of the public. So go to the next slide. So this is what we learned from JPL. They were looking statewide at methane emissions. So under California's greenhouse gas program, one question is, what are the sources of methane? So they surveyed across the state, and as Andy said, they showed a plume in 2017. They believed it to be incidental. And then in 2020, as they did some additional flyovers, it showed an increase in the plume, and they contacted us. So this slide shows you in that little orange box where the plume was detected, and the larger yellow box is the border or the outline of the Valley facility, as well as some other LADWP facilities. And so you can see that the plume was not located particularly near the boundary of the facility, and mostly it's surrounded by other industrial facilities. And we believe the closest residents are about a quarter mile away, or maybe further. Go to the next slide, please. So these, again, from JPL, the various pictures of the plume. And as you can see on the right, the concentrations had increased. And again, they contacted us due to the increase in the concentrations that they were observing in their different flyovers. Please go to the next slide. So the numbers in blue are the methane emission rates that were recorded by JPL, and the little orange dots are the observations that LADWP staff did. And these emission rates or these emission points have to be averaged over time to determine the emission rate, and there's a number of factors that can affect, and that's why they're sort of shown as ranges, basically wind speed and temperature and other factors, and so trying to sort of determine what the rate is over time requires some additional analysis. But as Andy mentioned, our observations in August and then in September follow in the range of what JPL observed, and now are down in the range of 3 kilograms per hour. So go to the next slide, please. JPL also did some flyovers that included our other in-basin plants, and hopefully you can see that. So the DWP facilities are those little yellow boxes. So on the one on the left, it's all the way at the bottom. That's Harbor. The one in the middle that yellow box is Haynes Generating Station and then Scattergood. And so they looked at they observed a number of methane emitters within LA County, but they did not observe any plumes over any of these other facilities that are part of our in-basin power plants. So the little blue dots are the plumes that they observed in their flyovers. So go to the next slide, please. So we turn to what the regulatory requirements are for the Valley Generating Station. It's covered by Clean Air Act Title V permit that's issued by the South Coast Air Quality Management District that requires advanced pollution control equipment and best available control technology. They also report emissions through a continuous emission monitoring system. The permits do not include limits for fugitive emissions, and the compressors themselves were not required to get their own permit. The South Coast AQMD has a community investigation group that did visit the plant and did use monitors around the plant. And we do have representatives from AQMD on the phone if there are questions for them, and really appreciate them making themselves available to answer these questions, any questions you may have. So thank you to Terrence Mann from AQMD who's on the phone. And AQMD reported to their board last week that the monitoring they did around the perimeter of the facility showed levels to be within typical background levels and no elevated levels of any toxic compounds within the facility. They submitted a data request to us, which we have fulfilled, so we'll await any further questions or information from AQMD. As far as greenhouse gas goes, we do report our CO2 emissions to the Air Resources Board. There are not requirements by the state to report the fugitive methane emissions, and the power plants are subject to the greenhouse gas requirements only related to the combustion of natural gas to produce electricity. So go to the next slide, please. So, as Marty and Andy said, we've learned some lessons from this and are taking some steps, including, as you've heard, policies to make sure that we are proactively identifying and repairing any methane leaks as quickly as possible. We're looking at ways to make our air quality monitoring database available to the public so that they can view it whenever they want, whether we post our own data or link to data that we submit. We are also we will work collaboratively with the Air Quality Management District to have them help us develop a fence line monitoring program for all of our in-basin power plants, and we'll also work to establish a community notification protocol, and we'll continue to try to monitor and quantify the fugitive emissions at this plant and at others. We'll go to the next slide, please. Also wanted to remind you that you as a board already approved this community emission reduction grant program to address the communities that are disproportionately burdened by multiple pollution sources, but also where our power plants are located. And so we will be funding grants for emission reduction projects over the next 5 years in council districts 2, 6, and 7, and 15 as well, because it also covers the Harbor Generating Station in addition to the communities that surround the Valley Generating Station. And the purpose of these emission reduction projects that we will fund others to carry out would be to reduce the particulate, the nitrogen oxide, and the greenhouse gas emissions in the surrounding communities. And the grant will be rolled out in the next month or so. And I think that, if you go to the next slide, should be it.
Thank you, and again, we'll hold our questions until we've had public comment on this item. So, Susie?
Yes.
I'm sorry, before we go to that, I think Andy wanted to make a few closing comments.
Yeah, I have just a couple closing remarks here, if that's okay.
That's fine.
One, I just want to just say that for the power system, for the board and the community, that while we truly didn't feel that our employees or any of the public were put at risk during this issue, we also understand that we had a responsibility that we didn't fulfill. And I know I look at this, the staff at these power plants report through me. And so you have my commitment, and I've made it clear to our staff that we need to do a better job about bringing this information forward, and we will. There was a time during my career here that I lived and worked in this Sun Valley community. And so I understand, some of the impacts, truly not all of the impacts for this community, but I completely understand the concern we've caused by us not bringing this information forward. So I think through this presentation, hopefully we've at least alleviated some concerns and fears, but working together with Nancy's team and my team, we will work hard going forward to bring this information forward in the future and being ultimately more transparent and working with the community on these issues, right? So we had really done a really good job in building trust with the community, and I completely understand that we broke that trust. And I am, and my teams are committed to doing what it takes and spending the time going forward to rebuilding that trust with the community. We want to be good neighbors. We want to be good partners. So.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
If we can now hear public comment.
Yes. Can I? This is Fred Pickle. I'd like to ask a brief question.
No, we'll take public comment and then we'll take questions and comments. So I think we've all talked a lot about this. Can we please hear from the public on this matter?
Andre Ramirez. Andre Ramirez.
Thank you, Can you hear me?
Yes, please begin.
Hello.
We hear you.
Okay, thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of Become Beautiful and the Los Angeles Clean Energy Coalition. What we'd like to say, we appreciate the report that's been given to us by the staff. We also want to voice our disappointment and our great concern of the lack of transparency and accountability that has gone through this whole process. I feel like, or we feel like, the impact of abuse needs to really be studied further. It's very difficult to feel like the health and the well-being of our community is not really taken as a priority. The fact that this group has been around since at least, and been known about since at least August of 2019, is something that's very concerning to us. Our community has been bringing up a conversation about the Valley Generating Station for over a year now with LADWP. When the one-through cooling facilities were decommissioned, we brought up the question of the Valley Generating Station as the oldest and least efficient of the gas plants that were left in the LA basin. In December of 2019, we met with Nancy and Martin Adams to discuss the Valley Generating Station, but not once did they mention anything about a leak or any type of emissions that were coming from the facility. This was a moment to be transparent to the community about what's happening with this facility, about what's the future of this facility, and that moment was not met. We really feel that our trust was broken with that lack of transparency. We really want to hear that there's no absolutely right. We don't know who to trust. All of a sudden, the fact that, in a matter of a week, this can be mitigated when it's lasted so long so far, right? Since 2017, it was first detected. We need more transparent reporting. We demand that the DWP actually comes to the community again and gives the report in person to people in the community, accessible to the community, because unfortunately 10 o'clock on Tuesday isn't accessible for students, for people that are working, people that are impacted directly on the ground. You know, we demand that until the leak is fully mitigated, the Valley facility be shut down. It's a peaker plant, but yet when the heat wave just hit, we just heard of the report back, right? Our communities were hit with the blackouts. So there's really no value of us taking the full brunt of the health burden for the rest of the city when we see no direct benefit, right? Other than the health impacts of having a gas facility in our community. So we once again, we want accountability, we want transparency, we want to hear directly from the WC, and we will be continuing to bring up Valley Generating Station as an issue to our community, because even though a leak may be fixed, the fact of the matter is gas and diesel still burning in our community, and that's not acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Jasmine Vargas.
Hi, this is Jasmine Vargas. I am with Food and Water Action organization that has been working across the city for years, pushing the LA Department of Water and Power to go to 100% renewable energy by the year 2030. And in the context of the last week of the news of the leak coming out and the very real rage and urgency that the community has brought up, I think it's safe to say that the actions that LADWP staff have taken in the last week is heroic and is something that I believe we should highlight, that the workers at these plants and the people that run this utility are more than capable of protecting the public health of the community. And we also know from the experience, I think, that a lot of us have had this week, with lack of transparency and the lack of accountability, that when we come together, the people learn what's wrong, we can fix it. And since you are our utility, the public going utility, I also want to thank everybody that stood up against this leak and called for a shutdown. Everybody from Mary Martinez to Eric Garcetti, the mayor, to the people on this board that asked for a comprehensive report. Now, I need to highlight, however, that this report does only show half of the picture. SoCal Gas is providing gas, pressurized gas, and helping fix the leak. But also the gas is toxic. There are carcinogens in it, benzene, formaldehyde, carbon monoxide, things that are reported on our SoCal gas bills as top 65 warnings that they're mandated to do because their gas is a known carcinogen. So please, we have sent a letter to the commission showing that the public health has something way more to worry about. And we know, as Food and Water Action, working with the people that suffered the horrendous blowout at Aliso Canyon, what this actually means to communities, and it's not fair, especially in communities like Sun Valley that should be getting debt relief, should be getting debt stabilization, should be help in this crisis, economic crisis, instead getting polluted, and this has to stop. So I thank the commission for giving us space to speak to this today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dominic Valzone.
Good morning. My name is Dominic Falzone. I live in the city of Los Angeles, and my home receives electricity from the DWP. I'm a member of Food and Water Action. I urge you to shut down the Valley Generating Station immediately and fix the gas leaks. I urge you to report the total chemical emissions, and I urge you to have a trusted third party continuously monitor air quality in the vicinity of the generating station. I also urge you to create debt relief and debt stabilization for customers who have been economically harmed by the current disease pandemic, particularly those customers who may have sacrificed by being harmed by the gas leak. I support the comments of the previous speakers who support closing the generating station or who supported debt relief. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller with the area code 818 and the prefix 261. Please state your name.
Good morning. I think that's me. I'm Veronica Padilla, Executive Director of Plan Beautiful. Good morning, Commissioner, staff, and the public. Thank you very much for this opportunity. This morning, Plan Beautiful and community members walked from Alliance High School to the power plant for a demonstration and rally in front of the plant. And as we walk there, we can smell the local landfill, we can smell propane, we can feel and smell the diesel trucks in the intersection. And as we walk to the plant, realizing that although we can smell methane, that we were also walking towards more contamination. And it was hard for me to really accept that. As a city public utility, contributing to all the contamination that this community has already been suffering with so much going on, I just expect more from DWP. I understand how important the plan is for the city. I really do. And that's why we really wanted to work with DWP. You know, Andres mentioned the meeting we had in December where nothing was said, where we thought we were working together as community and agency and city to really create a better environment for our neighborhood that had already been suffering so much. So you can just imagine how difficult it was for us to receive the message and the way we received it during the meeting last week. And to hear now that it's been repaired to 95%, it just makes me question whether that is in fact the case. Because if it was so easily repaired in less than a week, why didn't it happen sooner? So I'm really having a hard time with that. And I really don't, it's JPL's responsibility to have alerted DWP or the public. I think that it is your responsibility as a neighbor in this community to be that better neighborhood, that better neighbor, and not contribute to so many other things that we've been experiencing. So I really hope that this is not the last time we have this conversation, that we can continue working on this and really call for the complete shutdown until it is 100% remediated, and then continue to talk about this 100% renewable transition. We value the jobs that are there. We value the partnership, but this has really caused a real strain, and I hope to repair that, but I really think that it's necessary that the plant gets shut down until it's fixed, and really call for DWP to do better. This is enough. We suffered enough, and this it's really disrespectful to not have taken quicker action and really alerted the community to this danger. It's almost criminal to really believe that it was going on with no urgency in fixing it until last week when it was made public. So I thank you for the opportunity. I welcome further conversation, and yeah, thank you very much for the time.
Next caller. Caller with the area code 818, prefix 207. Please state your name. Caller with the 818 area code, prefix 207. Please state your name. Caller. Moving to the next caller. Area code 323, prefix 588, please state your name. Caller with the area code 323, prefix 588, please state your name. Moving to the next caller, 818, prefix 618, please state your name.
Oh, hello?
Yes, caller, please state your name.
Hello? 818-618?
Yes, please state your name. Yes, it is.
My name is Lucy Garcia, and I'm calling on behalf of, as a volunteer with the Sierra Club. And what I want to say is that as a science teacher who teaches climate change, it is absolutely ridiculous that this plant is still operating after so many years and with so many different leaks happening. A constant plume of methane is emanating from this plant. It just increased a little. We know that the methane, we know from the Porter Ranch incident, the Aliso Canyon incident, that the methane is not alone, that there are other contaminants with it. That is a constant drag on the community around the Valley Generating Station. And what's so important is that there are many alternatives. What we need is a planning with the community about how to replace this ability to generate power that the Valley Generating Station does. That needs to be replaced. What would be the costs of replacing that with 100% clean energy? So isn't it better to move to the future than to keep trying to fix what is already wrong and continues to be wrong? We don't want a continuous clean. We want clean energy. I agree with everything the previous speakers have said. Obviously, we have to shut down this until it's fixed. But at the same time, there's a continuous plume. That has to be taken into account, and we have to move as quickly as possible with the community towards 100% clean energy, the equivalent of the Valley Generating Station being produced. All right.
President
Thank you very
McLean.
much. Thank you to the commissioners, and thank you for your public report and this opportunity to comment.
Thank you. All comments, all public comment is now closed. No more callers.
Thank you. We'll now go to commissioners for questions and comments. I'm sorry, Fred, we'll start with you since I cut you off at the beginning.
No, that's fine. I have a question for DWP rather than a comment. It's how reasonable would it be to arrange for high pressure delivery of gas to this site at all times, as opposed to using compression on site?
So, Fred, I spoke to Norm Cahill, our director of Power Supply Operations Group. He's been in contact with the gas company, and that was part of the issue why we couldn't do this sooner. Right now, the gas company estimates that they can probably keep this up for 3 more weeks. And then after that, it's sort of a day-to-day case. And then, for the gas company, during the winter is their peak and the summer is our peak. So when we go through the winter peaks, they could not supply this pressure, the gas at the pressure we require. So we were able to do this to make the repairs, but right now they can only commit to about 3 more weeks of this increased pressure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Elaborating on that, I imagine there would probably be dangers associated with the high pressure. So, no, you're shaking your head, Fred.
It's it depends on their pipeline system, and this is kind of detailed pipeline modeling. And even though I worked for the gas company one time, I don't know what their system looks like in that area. But major portions of their system are designed to a maximum operating pressure of nearly 1,000 psi.
So,
But the operating pressures are usually substantially lower than that. And my recollection is long enough ago, I don't want to try to quote it.
so we're going to start on the board. Are there questions or comments? Commissioner Neiman Brady?
Yes, just one question. Andy, I was wondering if you could weigh in on the utilization of Valley Generating Station over the weekend.
I'll have to go to Norm Cahill on that, and Norm can give us an answer there. I mean, typically we've been using Valley at about 47% here over the last month or so.
He's coming to the mic now. Mr. Cahill?
Yes, commissioners, throughout the weekend, we basically had all our units running to help support, the load. As you can imagine, it was quite high. In fact, all the in-basin units were pretty much running 24/7 over the last 4 days, to provide enough power for the customer load.
Okay, so I just wanted to reinforce how critical the facility was. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Berard, any questions or comments?
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reyes.
Just a follow-up for Norm. Was there a power outage in the valley around that area too this weekend?
Yes, there was. It was due to a pole top DS that had failed and exploded, which actually caused one of our transmission lines to relay out, which caused a tremendous voltage dip in our system. So it took a couple hours for us to restabilize the system and basically also bring the PDCI, which also tripped off, which is the Pacific DC intertie. So that was something we had to work through amongst everything else going on. But it was kind of a weird anomaly where a pole top basically took out a transmission line. That's something that we don't ever usually see. So that was a little bit of a cause of some of the outages, was trying to restore that within a couple hours.
Okay, and I have a question about the compressors. Are the natural gas compressors required to have like daily visual inspections and leak measurements of the components?
Yes, we actually, not just daily, we do at least once a shift. Okay. Our staff goes and inspects the compressors, sometimes multiple times during the shift, depending on what is the run rate of the compressor. So they actually go, and we actually have a checkoff sheet that they sign and fill out, showing that they did inspections of the compressors, and we do that at all the plants.
So that's really a concern, because then we ought to know, or to have known, which first of all, the emission standards for those reciprocating compressors, right?
Yes.
And then all compressors are subject to the leak detection and repair standard in California. So knowing that earlier and really alerting or notifying our folks if there are leaks that due to the daily inspections and leak measurements, that we should have have that in our notification system. Is that something that is part of the recommendation that we have brought forward, and how committed are we to that?
Yes, we are 100% committed to that. And it was like Andy said, we apologize, but we also do have environmental specialists on staff at the plants that monitor all emissions, including this. And until last year, we didn't have a way of monitoring the leak. It was something that the plant engineers had to put together and find out what the rate of the leak was. And so we weren't aware of it. And to the best of my knowledge, there was no regulations requiring us to monitor the methane leaks at the time. So when we started to learn about a leak, we tried to figure out how do we quantify the amount of leakages going on as of last year. And that's what we came up. Part of our root cause is figuring out how to monitor the leak and measure it, and then come up with a plan to make all further repairs.
Yeah, because even though it's a small percentage is being leaked, the fact that methane is such a powerful greenhouse gas makes the small leaks very important. Personally, for me, that monitoring, even though we're not required to do it, is important to just get ahead of the problem, to take a look at those compressors. Maybe it's a design flaw and, forecast when it will need repair, and then order those parts ahead of time. And then I would like to see that disclosure early on and work with our community partners, because this is their community and they are entitled to that information. They could even probably help us solve the problem, have some ideas, so that communication and outreach for me is very important. And then probably come up with a metric so for fixing the leak, so that our folks are incentivized and we could report out on what we have done more proactively rather than reacting to the problem.
Yes, understood.
Along those lines, Nancy, I know you're going to say something, but I think exactly, there's issues of regulatory compliance that we monitor for, and then other things that we may know about or not know about that we should be daylighting as well. And so, did you want to comment on that, Nancy?
Yeah, just a couple of thoughts. When I think when we get the fence line monitoring protocol in place and do it in all our facilities, then then we can speak with some confidence about what's actually out in the community, and so in addition to the sort of regular monitoring of the equipment itself, that will help us to communicate what we know going to the community. The other on the methane emissions, this is I know a concern that the state hasn't quite figured out how to address yet, in terms of sort of the many sources of methane as a potent greenhouse gas, and how to regulate that. But there's no reason we can't be more proactive in dealing with that.
Yeah, what gets measured gets managed. And I know we do have an investment plan for tackling our aging infrastructure. And I would like to see, though, the acceleration and transition to 100% carbon-free renewable energy as soon as possible.
Okay, are you complete, Commissioner Reyes?
Thank you, that's all.
Then thank you. I'd like to say a few things before we move on, and then we'll take a 5-minute break before the next presentation. First, I very much appreciate the report by the staff today, and also the acknowledgement from our general manager that this item came to public view in a really difficult and haphazard way, and and his, taking both responsibility for and underscoring our collective regret for that. I also want to acknowledge the time, the energy, and the continued commitment of community stakeholders, both in reaching out to the department, in continuing to reach out to and mobilize and trying to keep their community informed of these items. It's a critical and important part of this department's efforts to establish and maintain partnership and trust with the ratepayers, customers, and community, frankly, that we serve. Toward that end, a couple things. I do believe that it would be useful for the department to provide a presentation at a time that works for members of the affected communities. So I would will be working with the general manager's staff and with Proclaim Beautiful. I think that's where that request came from, in order to facilitate a formal presentation on this issue to community members. I assume that we will be able to establish a way of doing that that is appropriately social distanced and that leverages the technology that we have to make that possible. I think it's important that we meet people where they are, and often where they are is not here at 10 a.m. I also want to underscore my, comments made by other commissioners. I fully understand the department's perspective around health and safety as it relates to our employees being a proxy for the community in this instance, and the sensibility around, if we don't perceive a risk, a health or safety risk relative to the 300 people that we have on site every day, that did not trigger and immediately trigger a need to notify people beyond the plant. This has been an important learning experience as to what we monitor and what triggers our actions, both in terms of repair and in terms of notification, irrespective of its potential to suffocate or to explode. Methane has significant greenhouse gas impacts, as has been previously noted, and for that reason alone, the department should have existing protocols to immediately lean in and make appropriate repair and mitigation of leaks wherever they exist. And I appreciate that the staff has rapidly come to that conclusion. It's difficult to turn a battleship, and we are moving aggressively in so many different areas that pulling together all of our operations and maintenance in line with all of our policies and goals around climate change and clean energy. We're going to find places where we're missing the mark. This was clearly one of those places. I did hear and wanted to just speak to, again, one of the speakers' concerns about the reliability of our monitoring and our assertions that the methane plume, such as it did not leave the perimeter of our property or pose a risk to public health in the community, and to simply underscore that not only were those our findings, but those were also the findings of AQMD. And as difficult as it is for communities that have been traumatized by generations of malfeasance and misrepresentations and lies, that is not what is taking place here. This department humbly apologizes, but for its lack of transparency, but I trust the information that is being provided, and I know that regardless of the impact of a negative report, if that's what we had, that's what we'd say. We will be placing this matter back on the agenda for additional monitoring and comment. And specifically, I will be looking for where we are with respect to developing policy that identifies proactively and repairs methane leaks, where we are in terms of developing air quality, an air quality monitoring database for public view in real time. Certainly, we will want to know and want progress on how we might establish a monitoring and notification protocol with AQMD around our fence line. And also, I want us to think through how we are going to monitor and quantify fugitive emissions. It is not useful to dump just a lot of random information on community members. We need to work actively and thoughtfully about establishing meaningful metrics that we can report and that folks can agree are useful for them to know and to move that forward. So unless there's something else on this, and I see that there's nothing else, I appreciate very much the report, the diligence, and the really exemplary action of the staff over the last couple of weeks in addressing these issues. And with that, we will take a, let's say, 10-minute break and take up the IT report when we return. Thank you.
President McLean-Hill, meeting's now in order.
Do we need to take the roll again?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Commissioner Berard? President McLean-Hill?
Present.
Commissioner Neiman Brady?
Present.
Vice President Reyes?
Present.
I believe we're trying to get Jill Berard back on the line. She said she'll be back in 2 minutes.
We have a quorum.
Yes, we have a quorum.
Then let's move forward, please. Mr. Adams, we have item 8C.
Yeah, so this is a review of our IT or technology modernization. It's our quarterly report, an update, and Mr. Lewis Carr is here. I don't know if Linda Lee is going to do any briefing at the beginning, but Lewis is here to give us that update.
Yes, I believe Linda has some introductory comments.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for having us today. So this report is the report that several of you Commissioners have requested over time. You want to make sure that we're on time to do what things that we have set forward in the budget and the request, and it's critical to making sure that we move forward as a company because the IT projects are the backbone of whatever we need to do to move forward. And so the presentation today is going to give you an overview of what we're doing for this fiscal year, what we've lined up, what we've done so far. You're going to notice right off the bat that one of the major projects that we are responsible for is the CC&B upgrade. And I chose not to put it into this presentation because I think that subject is a very important subject that we need to do a deep dive into specifically and not lump it in together with a bunch of other projects. The other big project that we're working on, of course, is the ERP, and so that also is another huge project that we're working on. And so sometime later this year, you're going to see us bring a specific board item for the blueprint of the ERP project, and so that we can do a deeper dive. But I thought it would be good for us to know at this point on how we're moving forward with the ERP. CCB, even though it's not included here, I just wanted to say that it is the upgrade is moving forward, and hopefully you're going to be pleasantly surprised and very approve of the type of detail that we're putting into the project, the coordination, the auditing, the quality assurance that we're putting in to make sure that this rollout is going to be successful and that we address any of the concerns that were previously not addressed or might be of concern to many. Okay, with that, Lewis is going to do the presentation today.
Good morning, Board. Some of you may recall the 3-year technology roadmap. It's impossible to read on this board, but we're going to...
Okay, good. It's not just me.
But we will dig into some of the details on the projects as we go forward. Wanted to start by talking a little bit about personnel and hiring activities. As part of our fiscal year 2021 budget, the general manager improved an increase in our APR by adding 118 budgeted positions. So now we're up to 613 positions. As of August 2020, ITS has 94 vacancies. For a target, we've talked about performance measures. Our goal is to try to hire, process 25 hiring packets each quarter. So if we're successful with that, that should get us over 100 to try to address the vacancy factor there. Since July 2020, we've completed 19 hiring packages, and we actually, 6 vacancies were filled from outside of LADWP. So our goal is to try to not only hire, but fill vacancies, net vacancies, so that we don't have as many vacancies. And as explained by HR a couple of meetings ago, our hiring process is designed to give internal candidates first opportunity at promotion, which works well for them. One of the things we're doing, moving on to the next slide, we're going to try to hire in larger groups. In the past, we've done individual interviews for individual positions, but in order to make a dent in the vacancies, we have to hire in larger groups. So we're starting with our Systems Analyst 2. That's one of our lower level, almost entry level positions, and we're going to start hiring there. I just want to reemphasize that we must invest heavily in training our staff. Hiring is one hurdle, training is a second hurdle to lay the foundation for our future. The next slide, you'll see what I'm calling the core curriculum for our Systems Analyst 2. That's in place, and we'll be developing similar core curriculums for programmer analysts, systems programmers, and other IT classes. We continue to develop our project management skills, and Linda directed me to coordinate with HR to develop a management academy. And I know that the department has had management academies in the past, but we want something that focuses not just on the management skills, but some of the IT skills as well. For example, learning how vendor management of cloud vendors, those sorts of things, developing requirements, negotiating contracts. So we want to build that capability within our staff, even more stronger than it is today. The next slide, I'll just pause for a second. Most of the classes are technical classes, but you'll notice at the bottom, I want some soft skill classes: project management foundation, time management foundation, business writing techniques, communication foundations, so that we're building well-rounded IT personnel as we go forward. The technology project tracker, with the assistance of some outside assistance, we have developed a set of processes and documents to support our IT tracking. We have a project tracker that's updated monthly. I'll just share it with you guys. These are all the projects that we do, and we track them in significant detail. Budget, costs, risks, issues, all those things we're tracking. We've created an IT project management office, hired an IT manager, and hired a senior systems analyst to lead the IT PMO group. And that's the group that maintains this document. Additionally, we'll issue ETAS and cyber task orders for accelerated training and project management assistance. This is an overview of our IT project management lifecycle. It's pretty standard. This is industry standard project management lifecycle. There are 6 phases here. As an example, I won't go into all 6, but for example, in the first phase, you may have a document like a project charter, something like this, where they put together all the high-level requirements, identify the sponsors and budget and that sort of thing. In the execution phase, you're going to have detailed requirements. You'll have UAT and all the user acceptance testing. Forgive my acronyms. You'll have user acceptance testing and those sorts of tests and documents in the execution phase. The bottom half of the chart talks about the visual on how we track our projects. Red meaning it's behind schedule, yellow meaning it's at risk, green it's on time and on schedule. Securing our environment. I wanted to reemphasize that our cybersecurity efforts continue, but it's not just the enterprise cyber team. It's collaboration with the Energy Control Center, Power SCADA, Water SCADA, and all of ITS. Similar to the rest of ITS, the focus within the cyber team is on hiring, some engagements, and more training. This is a partial list of some of our infrastructure projects. This is a look forward. I do want to, as you look at the start dates, some of these are starting next month or this month, but we have completed a number of initiatives in the past. For example, we've updated our web filtering software to track which websites we go to. We've updated our network access control. We've engaged with a number of federal agencies to help us build our capability. So that's in the past, but this is looking forward. So at this point, all the project healths are green, but these are the funded projects, a partial list that we're going to move forward on. Just to give you guys an idea of what we've been doing around the phishing campaign, and that's where we have a campaign where we send an email out to our employees, and see if we can trick them into clicking on a bad link. We're getting better. The statistics there show that last year, 17% of our employees clicked on the bad link. That's the term they use called fish prone. This year, only 9% clicked on the bad link. So our education seems to be taking root. Fewer folks are getting fooled into clicking the bad links. Moving on to the enterprise resource planning, and as you guys are aware, this is our project that will replace our financial, HR, accounting, and procurement systems. At this point, again, the project is in the early stages, so the project health is green. Some of the progress to date, we've issued the RFQ, assembled our teams, completed the RFQ process, selected a product, and now are in preliminary discussions with that vendor. I think a bit of good news, our original timeline had us probably starting the project in mid to late 2021. We've actually been able to pick up some momentum based on some decisions the project team has made to move us forward. The revised timeline has us kicking the project off in the March-April timeframe. Here are some additional project technologies. Even though the other slides were all green, unfortunately not everything is green. So I'll briefly talk about the two items that are not green. The safety training system, it's delayed because I made a decision some number of months ago to change how we were managing the system. We were partnering with the personnel department, so we were under their umbrella, and we had some level of access to administration. The team, and myself included, felt it would be better for us to have our own instance where we had full administrative capability as we leverage this technology. So that change in decision got us behind. But some of the good things we have done recently, though, we have started to load the new environment with data, our training data. This October, we're going to do our cyber training on this new platform, so we are moving forward on this new platform. And the commission chambers technology, we've lost a little bit of time there. Again, during the pandemic, I had to manage my resources, and this one was paused for a minute, but in recent months, Joe Ramallah and I, we've been actively engaged with the vendor, actively engaged with purchasing, supply chain, and it is, I think, our goal within the next couple of board meetings to present something to you guys for review and approval. Just some operational statistics again about servers being patched, 1,100 of our servers, 144 databases. Just a reminder, we still print an average of 50,000 utility bills daily. We have a large infrastructure of radios, microwave sites, desktop computers, badge readers that IT supports. During the pandemic, we deployed over 800 laptops and tablets, over 2,300 WebEx accounts, over 3,000 virtual private network accounts, all in support of telecommuting. And the last performance measure I have is from our service desk. And the way we track our calls, this is not just the service desk, but all of our tickets. Just the visual there, you can see the blue is 2019 and the red is 2020. From February to March in 2020, we saw an increase of 42% in our service tickets at the start of the pandemic. And throughout the summer, we've seen an increase of about 27% of tickets to our service desk throughout the summer of 2020. The performance measure that I'm fairly proud of is that even though we've seen an increase in tickets, the percentage of our closure rate is about the same. So it's not as if our backlog is getting bigger. We are keeping up with the backlog. Immediate priorities, again, a heavy focus on hiring and training. We continue to build and mature our IT project office. We're going to leverage the contracts that the board approved to accelerate some of the goals above and reinforce and expand our department's telecommuting capabilities.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the report. I'll start at the board. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Seeing none, Commissioner Reyes.
Just a question about now that we have a good number of our employees telecommuting, are they receiving cybersecurity training as well?
Yes, it's still a requirement. In fact, October is National Cybersecurity Month. That's when we do some of our promotions. And as you can tell by the phishing campaign, we still do all of that. All their training is online. It'll be using the new Cornerstone system that we're going to use for safety training. Okay. So it's all in place still.
And then on the backfilling of positions and hiring of positions, because you have 94 vacancies, what thought process or how are decisions made for those backfills?
As the backfills are created, we're taking a look to see where technology is going. So we want to be forward-leaning. For example, I'm developing a new team, our cloud management team, to help us manage cloud services. So that's a brand new part of my organization. As backfills occur, we take a look to see, is that backfill necessary or is it better used somewhere else? So in many cases, the backfills are necessary because they're supporting operational needs, payroll or service desk. But if there's a team or a technology that we are about to sunset, then we can repurpose that position somewhere else.
Louis, you talked about how many positions, and we had 19 packages, I think, and you had a net 6 new people. Can you maybe fill in a little more about where you're doing in the organization? Because I know people are promoting within, and then you're having new openings come up, right?
Right. As you guys are familiar with, and based on the HR presentation, a lot of our positions, there's lateral movement. I think Shannon mentioned that, which is great for the employees, which I think is why we need to invest in the training to make sure as they move, they're still very capable of doing the work. But as they move around, it creates a kind of trickle-down effect where we have to continue to hire. So if, as an example, a programmer 4 fills a programmer 5 spot, now I still have a vacant programmer 4 spot. So then I have to recruit for the 4, and more than likely, a programmer 3 will take that spot. So then I have to recruit for the programmer 3. But that's great, again, great for our employees because it offers mobility and lots of career opportunities for them. So managing that, my utility administrator and I, we have a large spreadsheet where we track all of this, and that's where I get the statistics that I present to you guys. So I think we have a solid plan in place to try to fill these positions with qualified applicants as quickly as possible and get them trained.
I really like the idea of the IT Academy, so thank you for that because, technology advancements, they're very rapid.
Yes.
And we have to make sure that we are equipped to address if any of our functions are going to be transitioned over to another type of technology, and for our employees to learn across different spectrums of all those applications. I think that is worthwhile. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I'd just like to say, to compliment the presentation, your reports are always exceptional, and I appreciate both their clarity and focus. I look forward to the presentations that Linda identified that will be coming forward to the board. And as she indicated, technology is really the foundation upon which, the future operations of this department will become increasingly dependent. And so for that reason, I am, confident that we will be having a meeting that focuses just very squarely on both technology and how that relates to the, sort of the modernization of certain operational areas. So I look forward to working with your department as we pull that together. Can you tell me a little bit about the project management office? I'm just curious as to, who we've identified to manage that office, and kind of what that setup currently looks like, and also as it relates to personnel. You indicated that we're continuing to strengthen or to make that a more robust area. So tell me just a little bit about that.
Yes, the IT project management office. Right now, we recently hired an IT manager. His name is Juan Zamora. He's leading a seasoned DWP employee. He's leading that effort. We've also hired a senior systems analyst under him, and we have some additional vacancies we're going to fill as well. They've put together a project office with full process, including, as I mentioned, with the 6 steps of the project management process, all the artifacts and documents that accompany each of those steps. We've received some training. We've sent, I think it's about 32 employees to a PMP boot camp, again, to get them acclimated to more of the project management processes and terminology. We will continue to invest in their training. We'll bring in some experts to help us get our documents where they're not just where they're more normal for our everyday operations. So that's where we want to get, where we can get them so that these documents aren't something that they're not familiar with. We want these documents in this process to be something that's second nature to all of our employees.
Thank you for that. And was there someone that was, I don't see the board anymore, so was there someone that wanted to make a comment?
This is Fred Pickle. I had one brief question.
Certainly, go ahead.
Have we had any success in hiring any people with experience in the top 25 U.S. utilities or with the major regional grid operators?
The short answer is not much. The longer answer is, again, most of our opportunities tend to be promotional first before we can reach that outside list.
And thank you. Dr. Pickle, did you have more to offer, or?
Not on this case.
Okay. So
more at the next one.
Perfect. Thank you for that question and for your response. I do believe that this is a critical area of oversight that this commission has to be very, consistently engaged in and very diligent about how we support and prioritize the ongoing work in our IT area. I will be very interested in how we ensure that we hit our staffing goals. We have lots and lots of things we're doing all of the time. We have any number of priorities, but among our priorities, have to really start to focus on those areas where we're going to meet the objectives, because failure to do that has consequences for everything else, and technology is often one of those places. And I think that Commissioner Neiman Brady's been very interested in HR and in how we onboard people, et cetera. As it relates to technology, I suspect that we're going to need to have a much more robust and thoughtful way of identifying how we secure the talent that we need, in addition to both training and providing professional development and opportunity for promotion internally. But we don't have all the skills that we need currently in our within our employee base, and we are not going to be able to cultivate all of that experience through training, however intense that may be. So I think this is something that we're going to want to come back to and to really hone in on, so that we can make the progress in this area that we need to make. I know that I said we had a long meeting, so I'm going to stop talking about this now and just say thank you and move to the next item unless there's more that someone else wants to offer. Okay. Then moving on, we have two filed items, 9A and 9B. Are there any questions on either of those items or any comments that the associated staff need to make? First, we'll start with 9A1.
This is Ann Santilli. The June 2020 activity report is in your package. I'd be happy to answer any questions. These are not our final numbers for our audited financial statements. We'll be going through the audit over the next few months.
Okay, and I assume that goes to both. There's an A1 and A2. I assume that covers both those items.
That was A1.
Got it. A2?
This is Reiko. The reference report is in your packet and will be for July 2020, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And 9, are there any questions in either of those items? All right. And then on 9.
I have a comment on 9B.
Okay.
B1. I apologize that I didn't do this right away, but I wondered if I could make my comment now.
Certainly, 9B relates to the update on the Valley Generating Station. So certainly, Commissioner Berard, any comment that you have would be appropriate now.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that in a matter of optics, that we ought to do something proactive and perhaps involve our communications department, because Pacoima Beautiful in that area, they normally think of themselves as kind of the stepchildren, that they're not really brought into any decision-making process, or they're just left. And I think that they need to be more part of this process. And I was really happy to hear that you said that we would have a meeting where they could be included. And I think that perhaps a press release acknowledging what our general manager, Marty Adams, said, that we will develop a policy, a proactive policy regarding the methane gas leak. And I think that is what we should get that out. I think too often the media comes up with their own spin on things, and I think we need to then put our spin on what this is, and that that we will develop a policy, we'll be proactive. We're going to look into all this, and then what Marty said, and I think that we ought to do that quickly, because I talk to the Pacoima people once a month, and I know how they feel, that they feel really left out of the process. And I think that it's time, this is a good thing to bring them in, and particularly when so many of them called in today. So I would just like to offer that as a suggestion.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that. And I imagine that we will continue to get inquiries on this matter, particularly in light of the demonstration that was held in Pacoima this morning. And as part of our response to that, Joe Romalo will incorporate the comments made by the general manager at the meeting today, and also the commitments that departments made moving forward. But I appreciate your observations, and also really appreciate the work that you do meeting with community members out in the valley, and supporting the engagement of groups like Pacoima Beautiful. So I know that it's appreciated by them, but I just want to note that service to the board. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
With respect to, it's now the items that were not approved on the consent calendar. We'll start with the minutes from our item number 10, the minutes from our August 25th meeting. Are there any updates to the minutes? And if not, is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes.
Second. Would you please call the roll?
Yes. Jill Berard?
I'm going to be sending in a correction to you.
Okay, thank you. President McLean-Hill?
I will approve, subject to the correction by Commissioner Berard.
VP Reyes?
Same here.
And Neiman Brady was absent. So 3
I
yes.
abstain, as I was not present.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Thank you.
3 ayes.
Then the motion carries. We'll now hear presentation item number 11.
We have, Linda, I don't know if you were going to offer a preface for this, but Aaron Henning is online to give a presentation on that and answer any questions. This is regarding the contract for general office supplies and products.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Neiman Brady. I just was reading the materials in more detail beyond what was just on the agenda, and it struck me as odd for a bunch of reasons, and I don't understand the fact that we're piggybacking an Oregon State University contract, how that came to be, why did we continue that, are other people piggybacking that contract, and then in the reasons why we didn't do our own, or the alternatives considered, they were basically just buying them directly, which probably would be not cost advantageous. Piggybacking the city's contract, which expires in 2020, or I guess this month, which doesn't make sense since that would effectively be dead or completed. And then the third was doing a new solicitation, which would, the reason given was that it would take too much time, but you've had since 2017. So this was just wondering what's going on here.
Okay, Aaron's going to help me with this, but let me see if I can try and answer your question, Ms. Commissioner. So we're piggybacking on the Oregon contract because that's actually a national contract that provides us the best pricing as far as office supplies. We did not piggyback on the city one because the city one, as we stated in the report, is expiring this month. They actually are also going to be piggybacking once their contract expires. The other alternative we had talked about was going out to an RFP. We can do the RFP, and we're willing to do it if that's the commissioner's direction. What will end up happening is because of the RFP process, we can't get the pricing that we would get from a national contract. And so that's why we went this route, which is at the end of the day, when we finish that RFP, our pricing will not be as competitive as what we're getting to now on this piggyback contract.
So step back for me on this Oregon State University. So this is a national contract that many entities piggyback on?
I have the same concern as you when I saw this item come up to me. And yes, this is a national contract that many, many organizations piggyback on, and it's just not UWP or California.
And not that we would want to lead this charge, but I would have got to imagine that the city of LA would be a big enough entity to be able to get some sort of bargaining power for all its entities and agencies, considering what it would likely spend. Is there a reason why they're going with just piggybacking instead of doing their own for the entire city?
So for the same reason we're doing it is the price that we can get for this contract is going to be different from anything that we go out to RFP for. So even if the city did their own RFP, they would not get the competitive pricing.
How do you guys know that?
Aaron, can you give us some more information?
Sure.
They already did the. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, so the previous contract, although it says that it's all Office Depot, the one in 2017 was actually the City of Los Angeles contract. And the city had all the departments combined into one. And unfortunately, they let that contract lapse, or they renewed it right at the 11th hour. So all the other city departments had to find another contract so there would be no lapse. And so that's why we went to the national procurement contract, which is for all public agencies across the United States. And the buying power there's one public agency that takes the lead and does the RFP. So in this case, Oregon State University did that. So that pricing is available to all public agencies across the United States. The City of Los Angeles was going to come back and recompete for the City of Los Angeles, but because of the pandemic and most of their staff is telecommuting, they just have not had time. And so as an interim solution, we expect that they're going to go to the national contract as well. And then they will, in turn, when they get more staff back, go to a City of Los Angeles one. And at that time, we would support that contract.
Okay, that's unbelievably helpful, very clear, very informative. Will you please put that kind of detail going forward? Because I think that makes complete sense, and I'm ready to proceed with this unless anyone else has questions.
Is that a motion to move the item forward?
Increased by $5 million.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Berard, was that a question or just an observation?
No, it's a comment that I see why my fellow commissioner is questioning it, because it's being increased by it's $5 million. That's a lot of office supplies.
Noted. Is there a motion to approve item number 11?
Not at this time, no.
If there is no motion to approve, then do we want this item to trail into our next board meeting?
Can you just get a point of clarification? I thought Commissioner Neiman Brady.
I asked if she made the motion. She did not affirm that she had. Were you moving to approve?
I was waiting to see if Commissioner Barad had any additional questions. If Commissioner Barad, if you have no additional questions, I will proceed to moving to approve it.
Okay, then I will second your motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Would you please call the roll, Susie?
Commissioner Berard?
Yes.
President McLean-Hill?
Yes.
Commissioner Neiman Brady?
Yes.
Vice President Reyes?
Yes.
4 ayes.
Then the item is passed. Thank you. If we could move to item number 14, which has been pulled for presentation.
I was the one who pulled
by
that.
Commissioner Reyes?
Yes. I really don't need a presentation. I have a series of questions, but if my colleagues on the board want a presentation, we should go ahead.
Actually, it would be useful for me if you would go through this rather, expeditiously.
There you go,
Okay.
Mr. Jaco.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, everyone, President, Vice President. I'm David Jaco, Director of Efficiency Solutions, here today to talk about the Los Angeles Better Buildings Challenge and the contract with Sustento LLC that runs the challenge on behalf of both the city and coordinates our participation. So a little bit of background history. The Better Buildings Challenge is something that the U.S. DOE came up with about 10 years ago and enlisted utilities and cities around the country to sign up for it. We were the first combined city utility to sign up simultaneously. So there were utilities, there were cities, but we were a city-owned utility, and the city and DWP signed up at the same time. I led that effort on the DWP side, and the mayor's office was involved with that on the city side. We did those letters of agreement in 2012. So it's been very successful. We've enrolled over 125 million square feet of buildings, far exceeding the original goal of 30 million square feet. And so we've increased the goal, but we still need to catch it up. The city's, the Green New Deal sets a 22% energy savings target by 2025, and we see the BBC, the LA BBC, as a highlighted strategy, a key strategy to make that happen. Bring those projects along, help them be comprehensive. They work hand in hand with our own staff. It's not duplicative, it's mutually supportive. And we've really achieved some significant savings so far. We've gotten over 24 million kilowatt hours of first-year savings. And remember, that's first-year savings. So as those measures save energy year over year over year, those savings compound. It has been implemented since inception by Sustento Group, LLC. They're not really separable. The effort, the LA BBC is basically Sustento. A little bit more metrics, but I did want to highlight a few things. You know, our ask here is to approve the contract with Sustento to keep the program going. A 3-year term and a total contract award not to exceed $4.2 million. We've already hit 125 million square feet, as I mentioned. And the heat map there gives you a sense of how widely dispersed across the city the projects are. And it's a very diverse base of projects. Public buildings, private buildings, commercial buildings, and also a low-income multifamily has emerged as a major focus of the program. So background on Sustento, like I said, they developed it for the city and has provided the services associated with the Los Angeles Better Buildings Challenge since the beginning, supporting large, complex efficiency projects and providing support for successful project development and execution. That's a lot of that hand-holding, working very closely with the customers inside teams. But what's really unique about this is it's not just technical advice in terms of energy efficiency and water conservation measures. They also speak the language of the real estate finance industry. They assist in identifying project financing and project management around that, as well as getting the customer to yes, helping the customer get all the information they need to pull the trigger on the project. And as I mentioned, they work very closely with our staffs. They also coordinate the incentives and rebates we have available. So we always make sure we merge all these benefits. And they're on the front line sometimes before it's gotten to our folks, and they help the customer get the project scoped and ready for project application. And that really helps, and we've paid out quite a few incentives to those customers, over $4.6 million in rebates and incentives to LA BBC participants. This is a graphic that, again, just kind of illustrates the services provided by the LA BBC. Rebate application support, benchmarking support's a big one now that we have mandatory benchmarking for certain customer sizes and building sizes in LA. They provide us a lot of help with that. And technical assistance, project development, marketing and PR support. We work very closely with Joe Romalo's team on collaterals there, but one of the things that LABBC does, in addition to helping the customers directly, is a lot of events, showcases, tech showcases for up-and-coming companies to meet customers. The annual awards, the Better Buildings Awards, which is a nice thing that's done every year. And in fact, one of the awardees this last time was Jonathan Rose Properties, and they're a low-income multifamily customer who, in addition to doing deep energy and water conservation, energy efficiency and water conservation, also did a significant amount of building electrification. And so that can be done through the program and already is being done through the program. And then there's a lot on this, but you get a sense of the diversity of customers and organizations that work with and are part of the Better Buildings Challenge. Very broad ranging. A couple I'll point out on the multifamily side: the Skid Row Housing Trust, LA Family Housing, HACLA, of course, Little Tokyo Service Center, Abode Communities, a Community of Friends, and then, of course, the big commercials: CB Richard Ellis, Jones Lang LaSalle, and others. Many others, as you can see. That's my presentation.
I appreciate it. Commissioner Reyes.
So I have a series of questions because I went over the contract a number of times. So the contract amount is not to be exceeded. Is almost $1 million more than the previous 3-year contract. Are additional services going to be offered, or what warrants this substantial increase? I didn't see any mention of heavily promoting building electrification. Can you explain why?
Okay, sure. The scope of the program has grown as we've added in the benchmarking support. There's staff that assists that on a full-time basis, so that increased costs. One thing that's happened as the program grows, these are very long lead projects. So when you first start the program, it's all pipeline building. And then you start getting projects completed that fall off, but you're always building out new projects. So we have more projects in place now than we ever had at any time previously. And that's why the need to service those projects forces the program to grow and the budget to grow. So that's why it's about $1 million more. It's about a third of $1 million per year is the increase, or $400,000 per year is the increase for the added scope. As for not calling out building electrification specifically, we could have. I mean, we're doing it. We're already doing it. We probably should build it in as a more explicit focus in the program, collaterals, materials, to make sure we're really able to promote that as a service, a technical and financial service that's being offered. The scope is written pretty much as generally as we can, so that we can add in things that we're not too circumscribed with too specific a scope. But absolutely, we can make it a focus going forward.
And related to the scope of work, I notice it's quite general, and it could benefit from more detailed metrics on their activities and deliverables. I would expect that type of detail for a $4 million contract. Can you provide the metrics as part of the reporting?
Yes.
And then
absolutely.
include that building electrification metric there as well.
Yeah,
I think that's where
absolutely.
we could do that. And then the last thing is we have to move away from rebating and installing new natural gas appliances. And again, I'm going through that decarbonization, building electrification, right? Because I would like to see a shift to new rebates for electric appliances. So I don't know if this is a conversation for the near future, but I would like to see that as part of this, because you're targeting millions of square feet, right, for different types of buildings. And this is the opportunity to really promote heavily those types of rebates and shift away from the natural gas appliances.
Right, absolutely. We are developing measures and rebates for electrification, generally looking at the highest efficiency that's available. We don't want to electrify with low efficiency. We don't want to electrify things to electric resistance. We want high efficiency heat pump technology for space heating, water heating, induction cooktops, dryers. They actually have heat pump dryers now too. So we're monitoring the state of the market in all those areas, because some are ahead of others. And so we're looking at what those price points are currently. I'll give you an example. Domestic hot water heaters that are heat pump have come down dramatically in cost. They used to be $5,000 a pop. Now they're about $1,100 to $1,200, which is still twice a standard gas model, but it's much more in the ballpark and much more in the area where we can offer a substantive enough rebate to cover a good chunk of that incremental cost, if not all of it. So that's absolutely what's planned, and this is one place to support that.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, terrific. Are there any additional questions on this item? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
So moved.
I have a motion and then a second. With that, Susie, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Berard,
Yes.
President McLean-Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Neiman Brady,
Yes.
Vice President Reyes,
Yes.
4 ayes.
Okay, terrific. And then our last item for open session is item 20, which was pulled by Commissioner Berard. Commissioner, did you have questions on this item, or would you like just some background concerning the item?
Well, I'd like some background, and I do have some specific questions about it.
Okay, terrific. Just by way of background, this item was developed in collaboration with our legal counsel. It is the establishment of board rules, something that this commission has had in the past. Commissioner Neiman Brady also had some visibility into the development of this document. Essentially, it seeks to reestablish commission board rules, so there's clarity around how we operate, both internally and also for the public and for the department. It, for the most part, represents an update of board rule of prior rules, but it does include a few new provisions. Some of the updates and cleanups included limiting the number of prescribed standing committees to those that are legally required. We can, of course, establish ad hoc committees as we choose. It also better spells out and identifies the roles and responsibilities of our board secretary, of the assistant secretary, of an audit person that we appoint. So some of it was just to clean up some of that. But among the more significant new things inserted in the board rules, for instance, would relate to moving to, say, paragraph 15, where we talk about formally establishing a timeline for board letters to get to our office. You know, we've indicated that we need 6 working days so that our staff can better process in a more timely and streamlined way agendas. Also, you'll see in that section that we establish a time for contract approvals. We've experienced, I think, on a number of occasions, contracts reaching the board, you know, within days or a month or so of that contract termination. This seeks to address that problem by requiring the department to get contracts that are expiring to this board 60 days prior to their expiration. We established that in January so that there is some time for transition. There's also, if you look at paragraph 22 and paragraph 14, sort of in combination, it lays out the method by which commissioners will bring motions forward to the board. We have had this sort of operating paradigm where commissioners in the comment period ask questions and make general direction to the department. Moving forward, we wanted to provide for a more formal way of and to encourage commissioners to bring forward items of significant interest in the form of motions so that they can be looked at thoughtfully, responded to, and then enacted as a matter of board policy or direction, so that we get a more formal way of providing oversight and, again, working with the department. So that's the background. Joe, did you have anything else to offer?
I think the other significant item would be number 37, providing the ratepayer advocate.
Yes.
The opportunity to fully participate in the open session meetings and as well as their participation in closed session. So that is a new item. A lot of the other items were eliminating things like notice by telegram, which we don't do anymore except to Mr. Adams. But
What?
some of the items were just cleaning up a board rule that has not been amended in about 18 years.
No, thank you for that, and I did not mean to overlook that particular, again, formalization of practice so that it becomes not something that occurs at the pleasure of the board president, but at the by policy of this board, the formalization of the inclusion of our Office of Ratepayer Advocate in our proceedings, both in open and closed session, with a few limited exceptions. So, Commissioner Berard, your questions.
Yeah, I wondered why we were doing that at this time, excuse me, and how it was different from how we've been operating.
At this time, because I think we got around to it, and the differences in terms of how we operate, I think I've highlighted a couple. So, for instance, in the past, whether or not the Office of Ratepayer Advocate was included in our closed session was a matter of their securing the permission of the board president, and this would change that, and that office would be entitled to participate based on the vote of this board, as opposed to having to get permission, from the board president. With respect to the provisions related to and processes for the department, currently the department is under no, there is no board rule that covers when we expect certain items to be either presented to our board secretary or items to come to the board for review. This establishes rules with respect to both of those, particularly as it relates to expiring contracts and as it just relates to the timing of items that are necessary to get our agendas out. And then with respect to how we operate, we will be working carefully to restrict the comments of commissioners during the comment section to general comments, as opposed to sort of issuing directives to the department that could rise to the level of matters that may influence policy or operations. We want to see those things come to the board as an actual motion that the board then can consider and adopt. So I think that that's the way that it changes operations. We'll be considering in future meetings additional board operational issues that I think will result in commissioners spending more time working with the department or on specific policy matters. So those two things together, I think, will strengthen the way in which we provide both feedback and oversight of the department.
Thank you very much for your explanation.
No, very appreciate the questions. Are there any additional questions? Hearing none, I move adopt. I'm sorry, was there a question?
One question.
Certainly, sir.
Are the blanket restrictions on RPA or Ratepayer Advocate participation in personnel matters, or are they subject to discussion at the time?
Subject to discussion at the time.
Because there have been personnel matters where it may have helped for the RPA to be there, and also all things involving compensation may be appropriate to have us there.
I understood, and Joe, I will put a question to you. Is there any modification of that provision that would need to be incorporated into the board rules in order to facilitate the inclusion of the ratepayer advocate where appropriate?
No, the president still retains discretion.
Okay.
So
Then does that respond to your question adequately, Dr. Pickle?
Yes, it does. And one other thing.
Sir?
The 60-day notice on new contracts or expiring contracts.
Sir.
We'd love to get a copy of that too.
Absolutely. Thank you. Then without further ado, I'd like to move the adoption of item number 20.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Susie?
Commissioner Berard?
Yes.
President McLean-Hill?
Yes.
Commissioner Neiman Brady?
Yes.
Vice President Reyes?
Yes.
4 ayes.
Thank you. Then that, I think, concludes our open session agenda. And Joe?
At this time, we will recess into closed session, and in accordance with California Government Code Section 54957.1, we will report any final actions or reportable items taken therein. We are in recess. You will receive separate call-in information for closed session. Thank you.
Please remain silent until all mics are off. Thank you.